to order the Architectural Board of Review agenda for November 28th of 2022 and start with a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'll go ahead and take roll call. Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson. Here. Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Noon is absent. Board Member Olson.
Here.
Board Member Whalen is also absent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We can open public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not on today's agenda. Do we have anybody?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I don't have anyone attending virtually. I do have a speaker slip for Colleen Kelly.
Great.
Ms. Kelly, please go ahead and come to the podium.
Thank you. I'm Colleen Kelly. I'm a local artist. I talked to you like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago before lockdown regarding the Montecito Roundabout. And I have come prepared with a napkin sketch, and she's handing you out Xeroxes of my napkin sketch. I'm sorry the ink wasn't fresh. I am here to respectfully request that you consider putting public art in the Montecito Roundabout. When I saw the article in the News Hawk, I could see that it wasn't too late. So I'm here to pitch that and encourage you to do it. And I actually had an idea when I saw the drawing that was in the News Hawk that one could have stacked up. I mean, this is an idea. I have other ideas too, but this is the only one I'm putting forward at the moment. Stacked up rocks that would be like a cairn, only it would be like this. And it would tilt in the direction of travel, and it would be like an ocean wave breaking. And you could have one or you could have several, and so that's something that I immediately came to mind when I started to look at the landscape that was there. And it would be like 3 or 4 feet high, so it wouldn't be in the way of anything. And also, I know there's no funding for this because the city and the county of Santa Barbara, the Percent for Art isn't really happening, and I'll be on that another time. But I think it's possible to get private funding. And also, I'm not sure how I would propose a more formal proposal. So I don't know what my next steps would be because there was no call for this. And usually I respond to calls, and this is for public art, and this, you know, I'm just coming up here and saying, I'm available. So
Okay,
I would
great.
like, yeah, did I use up my 2 minutes?
You did, but
Okay,
thank you.
great.
Thank you very much. I would suggest reaching out. Is any thoughts down here to who they would reach out to?
Chair Moore, through you. So we do have, well, it's an interesting question. And one is we have the applicant, well, there are multiple applicants with the city and the county. But there's also the, and forgive me if I say this incorrectly, but there's a public arts committee. And so I know that there are other public spaces where if there's an idea and there's a whole committee that discusses that, and generally the Architectural Board of Review does the courtesy review in public spaces for that particular art. So
I'm
that's
familiar with the Arts Advisory Board,
That's-
but
that's-
the public, art in public places was defunct years ago.
And I know that there are certain, for instance, the harbor just had an art piece come, and there are different art pieces along State Street. So maybe
But those
generally,
originate with
yeah.
the city.
Unfortunately, and beyond just talking to our public works staff and the applicant, that they would have to be the ones to propose it at this point in the process, I would say.
Okay.
Okay.
And Jessica Grant is the best contact. And if we have your contact information, then I can get
You do.
that information to you.
Okay,
Great.
great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no one else, we can close public comment and go on to approval of the minutes for November 14th. Is there any edits, etc.?
Move we accept as presented.
Okay,
Second.
any discussion?
Yes.
Okay,
Under number, I think it was the second item, number 8. If we could, what next page? I think it's like H, D, and E. If we could just make that Spanish style instead of Hispanic, would the maker and the seconder agree with that?
okay. Anything else? No? Okay, let's vote.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. Chair Moore?
Yes.
Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Olson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, and then moving on to consent calendar for the 21st.
Thank you, Chair Moore. Item A, on November 21st, 602 Eucalyptus Ave, received project designer approval and final approval as submitted. Item B, 18 Anacapa Street, received approval of review after final with the following comments. And that was the only 2 items on the November 21st consent ABR meeting.
Move we accept as presented.
All right,
Second.
any discussion? Nope, let's vote.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'll take the roll call vote. Chair Moore?
Yes.
Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
And Board Member Olson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, and then the 28th.
Thank you, Chair Moore. We had 1 item on today's consent agenda, 1109 De La Vina Street. This was granted project design approval with the following comments and was continued indefinitely for final approval.
Okay.
Move we accept as presented.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, let's have our vote.
Thank you. I'll take the roll call vote. Chair Moore?
Yes.
Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson? Excuse me.
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
And Board Member Olson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, any announcements, et cetera?
Yes, we have an announcement by Tess Harris. Yeah.
Good afternoon, board members. It's nice to be with you today. I'm Tess Harris. I'm the State Street Master Planner for the City of Santa Barbara. And I wanted to come before you to make all of you aware of some of our upcoming events, as well as members of the public that might be watching this remotely. We have our first survey out right now until mid-December for the State Street Master Plan, so I hope if you haven't taken it yet that you will consider doing so. I brought flyers, they're over on the side. You can also find the survey information at statestreet.santabarbaraca.gov. And then we have a design workshop coming up geared for the community on December 9th and 10th. We'll be hosting 2 different workshop series each day. December 9th, there's a design-focused design professional focused workshop from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then a general community workshop from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. On Saturday, we've got one from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. we'll have an open house showcasing the different pieces from the workshop, and then also if an individual wants to come in and participate in the activity, they can do so at that time as well. During the event, we will have childcare provided for the 2 general public times. We also will have a pop-up art show in coordination with the Arts Fund. So I hope you'll join us. It should be a fun event. It'll be at 821 State Street, again, December 9th and 10th. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements by staff?
Question for staff. Is it true that we only have one meeting in December? Board meeting, full board meeting?
Yes, that's correct. So December 12th would be the only full board meeting in that month, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any subcommittee reports? Nope. Okay. Well, if we're ready, we can go to item number 1.
Chair Moore,
Yes.
I'd like to introduce an idea to staff, a policy of the orientation of north-south on all plans. We're getting a lot of southeast, southwest, and so forth, and it's very difficult to communicate and identify where which is at. So I would like to suggest the policy at staff would be that let's see, the southeast would be the south, and all the others in relation to that. If that could be a policy, so we can communicate more efficiently here. Thanks.
Okay.
We have the minutes, Chair Moore, up, and then I will also need to prepare the applicant's plans. So we have,
Great. Well, while you're doing that, I'll read the description. So this is 1810 San Pasqual Street. Proposal for a two-story accessory dwelling unit, two-car garage, and a two-story, three-bedroom residence. Existing one-story residence to remain. Proposal includes demolition of the existing two-car garage. Project design approval is requested, and the project requires compliance with the project compatibility guidelines. And our motion from last time was continued indefinitely. Applicant shall confirm with transportation that the front garage and driveway configuration is acceptable. Overall sequence of massing from front to back to be restudied to find a more acceptable sequence of massing that respects the bungalow structure in the middle. The applicant shall find ways to bring more planting along the property line on the driveway side. The architecture should reflect the bungalow style and massing of the house. The perimeter fence should be increased to a maximum height of 6 feet. The existing house should be carefully nurtured back to health, not only with paint, but financially reasonable ways of removing piping and ad hoc additions surrounding the house. The applicant shall inform the board of any privacy issues of the adjacent neighbors, and in consideration of the density proposed, healthy and dense landscaping will be required. Okay. It's coming.
Mr. Chair, one quick statement that it was brought to our attention by a member of the public that the link to the plans was incorrect. And so we have addressed that online, and as soon as we found out, we fixed it. And so apologies to any of board members who tried to look up the plans, and but we verified with the city attorney's office that it's not, that this project can still be heard today, that it's not a misnotice or anything.
Okay, great. This is the project. Okay. Welcome back. If you could introduce yourself and take us through.
Hi, I'm
Project.
Jose Luis Esparza. I'm the architect. And I'd like to just go item by item as the last meeting, the comments were. The first one was regarding meeting with transportation regarding the driveway. So I've thank you. I've met with transportation, and they support doing a 20-foot driveway so that the cars maneuvering out of the garage, it just becomes easier. And because of the maneuvering of the back garage, we're proposing to remove 42 square feet of the back rear left corner of the building and remove the deck and stairs that were in the back that weren't in very good condition to begin with. But this way we can have backup and then pull forward without difficulty. Since we are proposing to alter that, we are proposing to take off all of the board and bat that was in the rear portion of the building that looked like it was the servants' quarters, or maybe it was an addition, and the siding to match. Okay, number two, we have changed I did quite a few studies and try to work out the massing for the buildings to see if there was a better solution to the massing, and every solution that I tried just created more difficulty. It would either add way more paving, and then we would have had to request a open yard modification. So we've stayed with the existing building layouts. But we have addressed and I think maximized the landscaping. We've got vine pockets here and all the way along here. Unfortunately, the driveway's just so tight in this area that we really weren't able to add any pockets. But we do show the fences to be all new 6-foot wood fences instead of the 5-foot wood fences that were there. And then we have upgraded the architecture. Let's see. I had some photos, but on the existing house, the gable end that faces the street has the almost like fish scale scallop siding, which we're going to match on both buildings. On the gable that faces the street, and then the eave is a wraparound eave, so it creates a triangular gable end, even though it's a hit. No, it's a gable end, and on the other side where we have just it doesn't face the front. There's just siding, wood siding, and then we're adding the vents to match the existing. I'm not sure if we're going to make those functional, since we wanted to use isoning to reduce the venting areas where fire ambers can get in. But we will have the vents, whether they're functional or not. It'll be in the working drawings. On the front, we've centered the deck over the garage doors so that we have more symmetry, from first to second floor. And the garage doors, we're calling out for bungalow-style garage doors, so that there's an architectural element to the garage doors. They're not just your standard aluminum garage doors on both buildings. And then if you notice, this window is centered over the garage door. Okay, number 5. Perimeter fencing, we already pointed out that we're going to use a 6-foot fence. And the landscaping, number 6 is the existing house. So in the back, we're going to go to the siding to match the existing. And we removed the porch that was sticking out here, and we're actually coming out and off to the side underneath the existing overhang. We've got a post, and this corner will be cantilevered. and we've mitered this corner to match what is happening on the front portion of the building with the mitered corners. And it also helps us to mitigate the vehicle movement. Then I don't know if we can go to the photos. Let me see. There was a question to look at the neighbors to see if there was any privacy issues that were encountered. Right here at this pop-out, there's a bedroom window that's like a 4x4. We do have one bathroom window that's slightly off center in relations to that window. That's a bathroom window. It's a 2x36. And then we have another window right about here that's a 2x36 that's in the stairwell. So there's no exact correlation with these windows, but because these are like secondary uses, and we'll probably end up using obscure glass for the bathroom, we don't see any privacy issues to this building. The other window that's in there is around here, and it appears to be a window into the stairwell. And then on this building, there's a bedroom window here and a living room window here. The living room window is about 8 foot by 4 foot, and the bedroom window looks to be about a 4x36. They do face the bedroom windows, which are about here and here on our buildings. We are 26 feet away, and the yard that the neighbors have, this doesn't appear to be a functional yard, exterior use space. It looks like it's just landscaping and other things. And I do have some photos of those areas if we can get those up.
These would just be the original photos?
No, there were additional photos that were in this group of
From these aren't the ones I can.
No, those aren't the ones that they were submitted. They would have been with this new plans, with that same date. But I have those documented where they are, and at least when I was taking the photos, and every time that I've been out there, they've had curtains down, because they get the afternoon sun into those windows, and it's probably quite harsh if you don't have any shades or curtains on those. There's about 6 photos in that series.
Well, while he's digging those up, why don't you keep moving around the building?
Okay. And the last item, which was just the dense and healthy landscaping, and we'll propose that when we have the massing and the location of the buildings for next meeting. 'Cause that was our item 7, and our item 8 was just the landscaping.
Okay.
And
My apologies.
no problem. There we go. I labeled them so that they could be. So these are this is the bedroom window. Might be a 5-foot window. And this is the living room window. As you can see, that they both have shades in place because of the sun. And these posts are at 10 feet, so it's 10 feet behind this cactus, 20, 30, and 40. This is the staircase, stairwell going up to the units. I think it's a switchback staircase. That's a close-up of the staircase. This is looking, kind of over to that fence. This is the window in the back building that I think is a staircase window, because it's much taller than this one. This one looks like a bedroom window. So that would be the one that's, the bathroom window would be approximately here, and the staircase window would be approximately here. This is a close-up of the gable end of the existing house, one of the side dormers. This is at the back, so we'll match this siding coming around the building, and put all the plumbing internally, into the walls, because we're going to be taking all that siding off, and we'll have the cavities open. And this is a photo of the front gable, so we'll match these this siding on the front gables. And that's the one on the driveway side, which is cleaner. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay. Do you have the photos looking towards the property to the north?
Yes. This is the north.
I guess the other north.
Okay, the other north. So this is the side.
The opposite
Yeah,
direction of
yeah.
that.
This will be our open space.
I understand, but the opposite direction, the property.
Oh, there's no building there at this point. Let me see. Let's go to the plans.
Chair Moore, if it's easier, I'd have Google Maps up as well.
Yeah, I believe this is a single-story building, so you really don't see it. There you go. See, yeah. See, I don't see any. There's a huge tree that's on the neighbor's property, but there's no adjacent building on that side as of yet.
So that shape that's in the upper right of the adjacent parcel isn't there?
This one we took from the city aerial map.
Okay.
So I think that may have been a garage that was removed.
Okay, great. Okay, let's open public comment for this item.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'll start with virtual public comment. If anyone joining via Zoom would like to comment on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. Not seeing any raised hands. I don't have any speaker slips and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Back to you.
Okay, let's go to questions from the board. Mr. Olson, any questions?
Could we go back to the elevations again?
Okay, this is the accessory dwelling unit, and this is the front building. Or do you want the side building
I'd like to
elevation?
see the existing building.
Okay.
So one of the questions that arose at the last meeting was, directions was to clean up this building here. And would you describe again what you've done? Because it seems like there's quite a bit to do that. And I'd like to be more specific what you intend to do.
Sure. All of the plumbing is in the back area, here. So all of that plumbing is going to be internalized.
And that
And
element right there is then re-sided also?
right, and right now if you saw in the photos, that was the T111 plywood with the bats.
Okay.
That's going to be removed, and once they remove that, we'll have the cavities available for redoing the plumbing. And this is the back elevation, which will be, again, new siding. Sorry. We'll redo the siding, and then we'll take the existing porch with stair landing that was back here, and we're actually going to do a post to support the roof, and then the stairs will be where the portion of the building is removed. And then the room that we're modifying is a storage room. So there's really no loss of space. This storage room went all the way out to here. So we're taking this whole area out, doing a 45 to match the other 45s on the building, and tucking the staircase in with a post there to support the cantilever corner.
Back to the elevations once more, please. So the foundation there under the front porch on the west elevation,
Yes.
what is that material?
It is concrete. At some point, the whole perimeter foundation was done with a continuous perimeter foundation, concrete foundation.
Right. And the electrical entrance there that the photograph showed there on one of the dormers,
That is going to be removed.
where does that go?
Let's see. Our new electric meters are going to be right here. And then and N is to be underground. So from here, we'll run a new underground to the sub-panel for the, where the meter was, and use that as a sub-panel to connect, new electrical service to the
Do
existing
these
building.
plans show that?
Not to, in the extent that they show the new service, yes. We don't show the underground going to each one of those yet.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Black?
Thank you. So my understanding is you don't have landscape plans today, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that'd be difficult to give PDA if you don't have that part of it, unless you're going to piecemeal this, but.
Well, if we have massing and scaled, we can, feel comfortable moving into the landscape.
Okay. Could you just quickly go over the renderings? I don't think you showed those. Just a little-
Okay.
And just describe them for me, please.
Yeah, we do have a couple of the renderings that were not updated to the last revision. This is the front of the building from the street with the new 20-foot driveway.
Could you enlarge that, please?
Sure.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with the yellow, the siding gets washed out. But we do have a landscape pocket here, which will plant a substantial tree. The existing trees are jacarandas here.
Yep.
So we'll do landscaping. We have enough area here for landscaping here and back here, and of course, up here in the front.
And could you just show us the other ones as well,
Sure.
at that size?
Let's see. This is more of an aerial, above the street looking towards the site. This is sort of an aerial from the back corner looking at the accessory dwelling unit. the open yard, the existing building, and the back of the new front building. This is a close-up view of the front of the new building looking from the street. Unfortunately, this roof is not correct. I do have a printed out. Sorry, that roof is going to be flat. I don't have a printout of that. This roof is going to be flat with beams to look more like the existing house front trellis. And then the next page. This is the back building. This is correct, but these stairs are not. These stairs recess back in here. This one would be more accurate if you want to see it on paper.
Okay.
But this is looking back towards the back from the front building. This is looking at the existing trellis between the existing house and the front building. And then this is looking from the open yard back to the back of the new building in front with the side of the existing building on the right. And I believe that's all the renderings, digital renderings.
And then, do you have any sense of a color palette yet?
I personally would like to have all the buildings the same. I like the yellow with the white trim and the dark roof. But you know, I'm open to suggestions if you have any.
No. Those are my questions, thanks.
Okay. Vice Chair Six.
Yeah, thanks. You mentioned in your presentation that there's no planting. Would you go to the site plan? Yeah, there is planting on the upsheet side of Unit B, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've got
Yeah,
planting
along the property
vine
line, yes.
planting to here, but then when we get up to here,
Yes, okay, you do. And as long as we're here, I imagine taking down a little bit of Unit B really helped your turnaround. Is there more ability to move that turnaround closer to Unit B, so you've got a little bit more at the corner of the new ADU? See how that arc just so tightly touches the corner there?
we could probably move it about a foot
Anything would help.
closer to.
And the
here.
limits, why only a foot?
Because when we make the turn, the inside radius
I get it, okay.
gets close to here.
Yeah, all right. And then the front, or the middle unit, Unit B, the porch, you're leaving that entirely alone, correct?
This one we are, the front one.
And is that a roofed or just a simple trellis, open trellis?
It's an open trellis that they put corrugated plastic roofing over.
And you're leaving that alone?
And I mean, right now I'm proposing to take the corrugated off and just have it open.
So the front door is not inset. If when you take the corrugated off, the front door wouldn't have any
No.
weather protection?
I mean, we could do the same as I'm proposing on the front unit, which at this scale might be better to
Yeah,
show you, because my renderings weren't updated in time.
Yeah, So you're closing that trellis look.
Yeah, so,
That's right.
yeah, on the front unit, we've got a beam across with 6
Okay.
bys, and then 2 by top to it, but it'll be, 2% or, almost flat, but it'll
Okay.
be a solid sheathing.
Okay, so you're anticipating some changes to that Unit B front
Yes.
porch. My question would be, could you not simply rebuild that and instead of having all those close columns almost up to the backside of Unit A, could you, and the awkward crevice below the porch to the front building A, could you not rebuild that porch and just connect it to building, connect the porch and the overhang to the building, the backside of building A? And perhaps even get see that very awkward thing there, yes.
I guess we could, I mean,
And then perhaps even have stairs going from that porch down to the backyard, so.
it is
that-
about 7 feet wide in there, which is much more than you need.
Yeah, I understand. But is there any reason not to touch Building A with Building B for seismic reasons, or?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's my questions, thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
I just have one question. If we could go to the front elevation of Unit A.
Okay.
I think it's just the next page.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Unit A. The main question is on that west elevation, did you consider doing a hip roof on the second level on the entire roof?
I did, but I thought, in keeping with the architecture, having a gable end facing the street, facing the driveway would be better, because the back building has a gable facing the driveway as well.
Okay.
And it would bring down the scale, and actually that was I did have that as a hip on my
The
first
original, yeah.
proposal, but I had too many, all hips.
Gotcha. Okay, that's my only question.
Okay. And while we're looking at roofs, so the existing roof slope is 5 and 12? Is that,
Yes,
okay, so you're just matching everything?
correct. And we're under all of the height requirements.
Okay. So you have kind of, you started with some landscaping suggestions, but only at the front of the property, right?
Yes, and it really only shows on the renderings.
Okay. And then I noticed as you were flipping through some of the, I think in the front unit, the garage, like the interior clear dimension is like 20'4", and then there's a different dimension for the, is there a reason that
Yeah, the
22'9" for the depth? Like what's
Yeah,
going on there?
Yeah, 29 is wide is standard. We are giving it an extra, almost, well, actually, an extra 2.5 feet depth, because the owner wants to have some shelving in the back of the garage.
Okay.
But, that is,
Okay. And then I can't remember if it's this project or not, but we talked about a trash enclosure location. Where is that going to be?
yes. Trash enclosure is going to be here. I spoke with transportation. Before we had it here, but it was so tight that they felt that it would be hit too easily and often. So we moved the trash enclosure to here, not inside of the open yard, but just enough that you know it's up against that building and can be rolled out to the street.
Okay. Okay, any other follow-up
Yes.
questions? Okay, go
Could
ahead.
we have one more look at what I believe is the south elevation of building, of the residence, the existing residence?
Okay.
I'll kind of focus on that area that Mr. Six was working on.
You said the A building, the front building?
No, the
Existing.
existing residence.
Okay. So this is the front.
So that area in there gets very tight, it seems like.
Yes. And like I mentioned, that front porch is more than generous. It could be redesigned and reduced without losing function.
Uh-huh. And what about making access from that porch to the backyard?
It would just take doing the stairs, you know, on this side as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to comments. So he's here looking for project design approval. So let's frame our comments in that regard. Who would like to start? Go ahead.
Why not? I guess in regards to mass bulk height and scale, I'd find it consistent with the neighborhood. And regarding architectural style, I feel like the applicant has put forth effort to make the new buildings I wasn't going to say mimic, but sit well with the existing, I guess. So yeah, I really don't have any further comments. I feel like I'd be in support of PDA today.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Six?
Yeah, I think the improvements are very good, and I'm not so concerned now with the sequence of the buildings and so forth. I think they all tie together, especially if you consider redoing the front porch to the mid unit, the front porch of the mid unit, in order to simply tie it into the back of the front unit, making that front porch of that unit much more generous and adjacent to the clean wall of the front unit. Perhaps studying a smaller yet more waterproof cover over that porch, and introducing a convenient stairway to the main backyard. I think that, if we could go to the site plan, it seems to me if in moving the that backup space around, if you could at all incorporate the trash along the, trash seems really out of the way. And can you, if you slide over to the left there, if it could be on the right-hand side of the turnaround only, on the arched side right over here. Put your hand on the other side, on the U right there somehow. It would be a much shorter distance for travel to the front yard. Something to study, I think. And then if we go to Just two other things. If we could go to the back unit, the north elevation. There, yeah, on the right-hand side. If you could, I studied that bump out on the second floor above the door. That could easily shift over to be the full width of the door, creating more organization of the door, and perhaps a additional knee brace or something to the left-hand side, right-hand side of the door, between the window, and maybe move the window open. I think you make that a much more believable entrance. And then the only other thing I have to say is that on the south and north elevations of both A and C, if we could go somewhere there. Maybe the south, yeah, like on the lower right-hand side. If just one kind of extension over at least the double doors of the dining room, it's something to, I think there's three or four of those type of elevations. If there's something else that could be a dimensional relief to those flat elevations, I think that would really help. Other than that, I think it's moving in the right direction, and I think that it's ready for PDA, of course. And I think it's moving in the right direction enough that we can wait for landscape at the next review. That's my comments.
Okay. Mr. Black, comments?
Yeah, I'd agree with those comments. I'm trying to understand what the next review would entail. If it were to get PDA today, I would have to imagine that you'd probably want to come back with a sort of an interim plan. We don't typically, because otherwise you would typically go from PDA to final, and I don't see providing final with no landscape plans at this stage of the game. So I would want to see at least you one more time, over and above PDA today, but landscape, we can see it. So when you come back for final, then we have something to base that on. So I think that would be important, and an irrigation plan. It's hard for me to sort of look at your site plan and determine how much landscape area is going to be required for this project. Obviously the front and then that open space. But I guess that's up to you and your client in terms of how much you want to do. But I guess those are my comments.
Okay. Yeah, I would
that
agree.
clear?
I would agree that it would be difficult to make the compatibility findings without
Correct.
some sort of landscape plan indicating that it's compliant at this point.
Yes.
Mr. Olson, comments?
Yeah, I think PDA is a stretch here today. I'd like to give it, I'd like to help move this project along, but there's some really important missing pieces here. The landscape, I think the color choices are still pretty vague. Yellow is a big word for how you might paint those buildings. And so I'd be more comfortable if I could see the actual choice. I think the trash is where it's located. It represents a problem for the neighbors and everybody trouncing around in those people's backyard. Seems like that could be improved. I think the porch on the building B that we've focused on needs work. I do believe that it's come a long way, and but it seems to me it's not quite far enough yet today for PDA. That's all my comments.
Okay, thank you. And I would agree with everything Mr. Olson said. But I would add that I think the board appreciates and the owner's intent to rehabilitate the existing building and make it a nicer place, as well as adding some housing to the neighborhood. Okay, so if that's it, we need a motion. So it sounds like it would be a continuance. So
We do have a date certain that we could continue it to, and that's up to the applicant and obviously receiving that landscape plan. We do have an opening on the 9th of the new year for January, so January 9th would be the next available ABR hearing.
I think we can be there at the 9th.
And Mr. Chair, through you to the rest of the board and to the applicant, that because this project has already been deemed complete, there's permit streamlining, so the deadline for a decision would be the 11th of January. So if we could schedule it for the 9th. And so meaning that if a decision isn't made, then you might have to, one way to do that is you can grant, or you can okay a one-time extension. So we might have to request the applicant to do that in order to accommodate this landscape plan.
But hopefully he returns ready for final
Right.
approval. Yes. Okay, so I'll make a motion for a continuance to December 9th. January 9th, sorry. That's a little too soon. January 9th, back to the full board. The board appreciates the work that's been done to date to improve the proposal. The board appreciates the applicant's willingness to upgrade and update the existing residence. Please return with a full landscape and irrigation drawings. The board suggests special attention to be paid at the property lines to provide screening with trees at any potential privacy or area of privacy conflict along the, how are we saying it, Vice Chair Six? The south and,
I think he's got it right.
does he? Okay. South and east?
South and north.
South and, well,
The long
the rear and southern property line is what the concerns are.
the south and
East? The south and east property lines. Then study relocating the trash enclosure to be in a location that's accessible or easily accessible to all residents. Provide color samples and color board. And then Vice Chair Six, you had some comments to do with the existing trellis.
Yes, Chair Moore, if I may add to your motion to restudy the porch between Unit A and Unit B to simplify and connect the two buildings, and to perhaps make access to the backyard from that same porch, and provide weather coverage that front door and Unit B. On Unit C, to restudy the projected second-story mass above the front door, to define the front door entry better. And perhaps move the turnaround for Unit C closer to B in order to provide more breathing room, or more landscape to to the front elevations of Unit C. And provide some type of window projections on Unit A and C, north and south elevations where appropriate. Well, it's not necessary, but it just seems so, he's got all this old structure right in front of the back. Let's just say simplify the porch structure between the buildings. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, great. I'm going to continue on. That the board feels the mass, bulk, and scale of the proposed additions to the property are acceptable, and that the overall design and detailing is acceptable at this point. Second round. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, let's read that back if we could.
Thank you, Chair Moore. So it's continued to date certain of January 9th with the following comments. The board appreciates the work that has been done to improve the proposal. The board appreciates the applicant's willingness to upgrade these existing residents. Please return with a full landscape plan and irrigation drawings. The board suggests paying special attention to the property lines to provide screening of trees to the area of privacy along the south and east property lines. Study relocating the trash enclosure to a location that is easily accessible to all. Provide color samples and a color board. To restudy the porch between Unit A and B to simplify and to perhaps make access to the backyard from the same porch. Unit C, in regards to Unit C, restudy projected second-story mass above the front door to define the front door entry better. Move the turnaround for Unit C closer to Unit B to provide more landscape to the front elevation of Unit C. Provide some type of window projections on Unit A and C on the north and south elevation where appropriate. The board feels that the mass, bulk, and scale of the proposed additions are acceptable, and the overall design and detailing is acceptable.
Okay, let's just say when we talk about color board, let's say color and material board. Anything to change, add? Okay, well, let's take our vote.
Thank you, Chair Moore. We'll take the roll call vote. Chair Moore?
Yes.
Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Olson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. With that, we can move on to item 2. We have 3 minutes? You can have 3 minutes, yes. We're going to adjourn for 3 minutes while we get this set up. item 2, which is 1411 San Pasqual. And this is excuse me, the folks in the audience, if you need to have a conversation, if you could go outside, thank you. This is a proposal for a 2-story building with a 4-car garage on the first floor and a 2-bedroom accessory dwelling unit on the second floor. The existing duplex will remain. The proposal includes a replacement of a rear retaining wall. This is a concept review. No appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Okay, is there any information from staff at this time? No?
The only information that I have is this has not gone through application completeness review, so we're still waiting to hear back, and so it's just concept review. So,
Okay, if you could introduce yourself and walk us through this.
Architect. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so I have a project here on San Pasqual, and I'm going to zoom into the.
Yeah, I'm sorry, do you mind turning your microphone on? It's the little button right, there you go.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And get it right there. So it's just on the other side, on the west side of the 101 freeway, as you can see here, San Pasqual and Sola, and it's a cul-de-sac street that ends kind of close to Mezzoterrena. I've got some photos here where all right, so uh-oh, sorry.
Use the little hand to pan around if you need to.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So here we go. This is the this is an existing duplex. It's 1,600 square feet overall. It's a it's a duplex. It's so a couple of 800 square foot, a 2-bedroom existing apartments, and you can see this orientation map over here to the left, and so basically this is the front of it, and then as we scroll across here, you can see most of these projects are, you know, apartment buildings that are on this street. They're, you know, anywhere. This one right next door to the right of it is, you know, there's it's 8 units, and then this is the driveway to the left of this of the project site. So you can see that, and then that's the driveway to the neighboring building. And so I've got a photograph of this, the back of that particular house, which you can see that concrete retaining wall there. So that back of that property is about 9 feet higher than the San Pasqual side. So the street on the other side is, you know, there's that much of a hillside up there. So all these projects that are on this street, on this side of the street, have these 9-foot retaining walls across there. So so this gives you an example of what we're going to be proposing on this property that I'm working on here. So these are just some additional photographs of the existing property, or the yeah. And then I've got you guys have Google Maps, so I don't know if you're going to pull that out, but I've got a photograph of that if you want to look at it. Otherwise, let's see if I can move down to there. There's some more photographs here. Okay, so sorry, I wish I had my assistant to. I had that assistant to help me out with this. So these are this is Sola and and San Pasqual. This is the corner there, so you can see a lot of these structures that are there have been there a while. So this is another one. This is from Sola Street, looking at those two buildings. This particular white, this white building here is an apartment complex that I could show you here, which is like all these buildings along here is that apartment complex right here. That's a good photograph of it. This is another fourplex that is Sola Street, looking on the other side of it, on the side, the cul-de-sac side of Sola Street. And then as you can start working your way around here, this again is the project site here. The cream-colored building, the dark green one is the 8-unit apartment building, and then you can see the white buildings are kind of down at the cul-de-sac, and some other structures around there. That whole apartment complex is pretty much the other side of San Pasqual. And this is the next door neighbor's property with the concrete retaining wall that I was mentioning earlier. So, all right, so here's the site plan. Here's the existing driveway. We got the existing duplex, and then the proposal is a 4-car garage, 800 square feet of a 4-car garage, basically 20 by 20 for each 2-car garage portion of that. And then the open yard there's 500 square feet that is required for ADUs. So you can use the driveway as that 500 square feet. So you can see this hatching there is the open yard space. The other thing for David to kind of recognize here is that the hatched mark here is landscaping. That's the areas of landscape right along the side here, and then the front that is existing. There's some little garden walls here that are in front that are like 36 inches high, stucco walls that go into the patio spaces. And as far as access, and then basically the circulation to the ADU is coming from the sidewalk or the street. If anybody came to visit, you'd walk, basically creating an opening into that garden wall with a little gate. And so you'd walk down the side and then around this laundry room. There's an existing laundry room here. And then you would walk around and under this cantilevered ADU, which is the second story. And then you'd walk up the stairs in the back, which is actually kind of the cool part. I felt like what's kind of awesome about what starts to happen with this is just because of the topography. Let me see if I can get this. Here's the kind of the second story. So basically, as you can see, you come around and walk up to kind of an entry court, which becomes their front door entry. And so then you've got this open kitchen, living, dining space there. And then you've got, your 2 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms, basically keeping the same existing style that's, with the, as the existing front building. And, but what's kind of nice about it, you can get some landscaping back here, and this is where that retaining wall would be. Right now, there's a stone retaining wall that exists back there. It's basically just been built up with stone, so it'd be an engineered retaining wall in that back area. And then there's opportunities for this area here, David. I guess or everybody, it's just like the terracing of this landing that you're kind of turning up toward this entry court. You've got this opportunity for like at 3 feet, you'd have landscape area with a tree maybe in that location, and then another area of landscaping here, and then this would be kind of a private open space for, not that it's required, but it'd be a great space for this ADU to use as an outdoor space. And then these are basically the drawings. You can see the existing elevation, pretty pretty straightforward. You can see that's where this garden wall, what I was speaking of, about the entry of it. And then this is the back portion of it where it cantilevers back. That's the existing elevation as you're driving down the driveway, looking at that face. And then here's another showing the detached ADU with the garages below. And then where you go up the stairs on the back portion of the property, and then have a little bit of guardrail there for that entry courtyard. And there's some more elevation. This kind of shows you more of that back area where you're kind of showing a section with the garage beyond of that entrance to the ADU. The ADU is lower than the front of the house or the existing duplex, which is a requirement. And it matches the existing style of the front duplex. And then we're basically using the same window, kind of the same grid pattern, mutton bars, same pitch of roof, rafter tails. And then we've got a section here, basically 8-foot plates. We've got scissor trusses, to be able to give a little volume in there. And then, we've got, the proposal for the solar portion on the roofs. You can see but 2 simple gables. And then we've got the stormwater management. We've kind of worked through that portion of it with Ashley Vance. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Square footage, 800 down below, and then the allowed 1,000 square feet of ADU above.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we can open public comment.
Thank you, Chair Moore. If anyone joining via Zoom would like to speak on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. Not seeing any raised hands. I don't have any speaker slips on this item, and we did not receive any written correspondence on this item. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment and go to questions. Ms. Anderson, you want to start us off?
Sure. Can we go to the aerial view on, I can't remember which page, 1 or 2? Yeah, can we zoom into
Yeah,
that?
let's zoom in. Can we zoom a little more?
Sure. Can you just point out where the proposed entry deck for the ADU is and what is next to it on the neighboring properties?
Yeah, this is the proposed, this area here would be that corner.
Okay.
And then this is a demolished existing slab that sits there. It's been
Okay.
demolished for a long time. And then this is the existing property or existing structures in front that are
Sure. Okay.
still standing out.
And then on your site plan, do you have a location for your trash yet?
Yeah, let's get to that here. Okay, well, I do not have it on
Okay.
here, but what my thinking was to have it located over here somewhere
Okay.
so that we can be kind of pulled out.
All right.
Or, I mean, it needs to find a location.
Yeah.
There could be some spots around here that we could put an enclosure in.
And are you proposing any mechanical units for this new ADU?
Only just general FAU, it'll be inside the building.
And the condensing unit will be, you're not doing
Oh.
air conditioning or?
Yeah, we'd
Okay.
probably have condensing, so it'd be probably a small condensing unit that we'll have located out there.
Those are my questions.
Okay, Vice Chair Six.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. I'm not aware, but did you find a precise requirement for a separate and identifiable entry to the unit, to the new ADU from the street? Is that a requirement?
No, I was just thinking through it.
Okay,
It's not a requirement. I was
requirement.
just thinking
Alright.
that it'd be a nice way to, because it seems to be a conversation about these multifamily units to kind of show
Okay.
a circulation that makes sense.
and would you go through, we're on the site plan here, the upper left-hand, where you have the permeable paving and for open yard, right there, right where your hand is, boom. Is that for an off, a semi-legal additional car, or is that for use?
It's
what-
for the turnaround. I went to traffic and
okay.
went to, it's, yeah, it's a three-point turn
Okay.
around there.
And then, when your open yard pattern, is that distinguished in material? That would be the pavers and the rest would be concrete, or what's your thinking there?
We're going to have, the idea is just to kind of meet stormwater is a good portion of that, actually from.
So that rectangle there,
I'll tell you what, from,
so that rectangle represents a change in material?
no, it just represents an area that is the 500 minimum that's required.
Okay, are you anticipating, you say existing driveway asphalt, are you anticipating varying your materials?
Yeah, it's going to be all interlocking pavers,
The whole
the whole motor court,
motor court?
just to
Okay.
meet our stormwater management.
Okay, all the way out to the street?
To the driveway at the end, so basically to this point, and then it's going to be asphalt there.
And then, is there any reason for the significant sized windows at the back of the garage besides providing nice sun to the hoods of the cars?
Yeah, they want to have a workbench across there, so
Okay,
it is for natural light.
all right. And then obviously you're going to create a new retaining wall facing the neighbor to the south or down sheet. You're anticipating that being what material?
I was seeing it as, CMU with stucco on it.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay. Mr. Black?
No questions from me.
Okay. Mr. Olson?
I'm still trying to understand the elevation changes on the back part of the lot. So one of the pictures that you showed us, you said there was a 9-foot concrete wall. And presumably that was a picture taken from the driveway all the way back.
Right, that was, if you kind of follow my hand here, that was this property down below, has
Oh.
that.
Oh, I see.
And then this property they've kind of got stacked stone that kind of takes care of that, which is not, engineered or anything like that. So we're going to come in and basically along this northwest wall, we're going to have a 9-foot retaining wall, which will be grade on the west side, on this side of it. It'll stop at, basically grade. And then there'll be a fence that'll run along that property line.
So does that mean you bring grade in order to then have this elevation change there?
No, it'd be the existing grade that's in place right now in the back of that property. And then it'll just stop. The retaining wall will hold that existing grade.
Okay.
And then basically it's gonna, at this area where that open, or that outdoor courtyard is, that's gonna be at the same height as that 9-foot wall. So it's gonna be up there. You're like at a second,
So underneath that patio up above,
is just dirt.
about 4 feet of elevation change?
Yeah.
Okay,
at Yeah. So it'll be 9 feet in this area, but then the garage is, basically, all the rest of this area, all this area here is 9 feet below that back property line. Because that,
okay.
you know,
I think it doesn't affect what this looks like from the street, so I'm not sure it's in our purview. I just was trying to understand.
yeah, it is it's an interesting
Yes.
parcel that has this situation, yeah. But you really can't see it from the front.
Right. That's all my questions.
Okay. Just one question. So the cantilevered portion, that's strictly necessary for the car maneuvering?
The cantilever,
Yeah. Is there a reason that some of that couldn't be brought down to grade? Or is that
should I look
needed?
at something? I'm not quite sure what the question is. This cantilever here, that's.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a reason that some of that couldn't be brought down to grade, or is it necessary for maneuvering purposes? Back out for the cars and all that?
I guess that's not, can you ask me a different way?
Well, if we
Can
go,
we go to
if we go to one of the elevation
Okay,
sheet
let's
for the
see.
ADU.
Sorry.
So on the
This one
northeast elevation, the cantilever portion that's
Mhm.
continuing past the garage,
Yep,
the reason that couldn't continue down to grade and just have a deeper garage is just.
oh, it's the
you-
turnaround.
You need that.
Yeah,
maneuvering.
I
Okay.
need the 20, yeah, it's the minute, exactly.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
Something minor, but in your backup space, I noticed that along the driveway, you have a planting strip, but then it sort of dies out as you get to the permeable paving area, I guess it is. I'm just
Mhm.
curious, and then what's on the property lines? Is it gonna be fencing or on both sides?
Let me
Look
get
at the
to
site
that.
plan. See on the the top of the sheet.
Yep,
Am I missing something? But it looks like it just sort of dies, the planting. Is there a reason why that is? Are you needing backup space there that you wouldn't
yeah.
be able to carry that greenery all the way down that property line? You
Oh,
follow?
I see. Yeah,
I just see it sort of stops.
right, it kind of comes into the property line there. There's a chance that we can get some vine pockets in there,
But it
it's
is an
kinda,
issue
it's really
about,
tight, yeah,
backup space.
yeah.
And then you anticipate on the property line would be what?
We could try to get as much as we can out of it.
Yeah, that'd be the idea, but is that gonna be fencing then, I'm assuming?
It is going to be a fence.
New fence,
Yeah, new fence.
Yeah.
All the way around the property, yep.
okay, on the other side as well? On this side, on the?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
that's all, thanks.
Follow up.
Okay.
I thought there was from the photos, there's a healthy hedge. There's a healthy hedge on the upsheet property line from the photos. Is that, and it looks like it goes all the way back. That's not yours, it's the neighbors? You have photos of that? Yeah. Yeah, that first, or number one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this here?
That's theirs, obviously.
It's
Yeah,
neighbors.
that's theirs, right,
Okay.
right.
So you're getting
So
a
that's
little-
that's gonna stay there.
But you're gonna fence the back of that,
On
on your side?
On my side, yeah.
Okay.
And there is an existing, I think there's an existing fence there.
Okay, thanks.
So it's about 6 feet tall there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's move to comments. Who would like to start? This is concept review, so kind of big picture comments.
Do we make comments about the ADU, or is it about the
It's just
garage?
the aesthetics and of
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start, it's fine. I feel like this is appropriate siding on the property and that it aesthetically matches the existing duplex. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, Vice Chair Six.
Yeah, couple things in a broader view. I think that bringing the entry to the rear ADU on the backside through the private windows of the second unit and past the laundry and that complicated route is unfortunate. I think that better would be to handle some kind of address of the ADU on the wall or on the garden wall, and have a transition of paving materials along the driveway to say that this is the pedestrian path back to the back unit, and utilize the difference between asphalt and your pavers in a more meaningful way to establish that route and establish the uses in that court in a better way. I said that, and that there, as Chair Moore alluded, that perhaps even a simple knee brace of some significant shape or deep corbelled beam in between where you have at the sides of your garage openings would help visually support that. I know it doesn't happen on the other unit, but the existing unit, but I think it would help this new unit to be have a better architectural solution to that extreme overhang. Other than that, I'm probably taking David's air here to say that configuration of the stepping retaining walls are not going to be happy for that tree. Maybe a way to reorganize that or place the tree in a different place.
Yeah, that's a proposed tree.
Yes,
That's
I
not-
understand.
I was just thinking it'd be a good spot.
And I think, the architecture is simple, but besides the corbels and so forth, I think it's acceptable and appropriate for this use and a particular property.
Okay. Mr. Black?
Yeah, I would agree. It's a nice solution. I like the way it's sort of tucked back there. I mean, you're obviously not going to see hardly any of it from the street, so. And you have a fair amount of landscape area too, which I think once it's planted out, it's going to be, make it a very nice space. And I like the idea that Mr. Six mentioned too about, and I don't know whether the powers that be would allow you to have just a change in pavement material to designate a walkway down the driveway. I think it's just probably a little bit more direct approach to the entrance to the ADU. So I think if you can do it, I think that it's probably a better solution rather than, as he mentioned, just leading people through between the buildings. So
I
maybe
could
you have
maybe do
both, I
a
don't know.
ribbon on
Yeah, I mean,
one
it's
of
been
them.
done, so I think,
ribbon style, right?
yeah. Those are my comments. I look forward to see the landscape plan too, obviously.
Mr. Olson?
So I have a question regarding this entry to the back unit. What kind of openings are there in the kitchen, dining room, and the living room of the existing duplex? What are people walking past?
You know, so second floor, right? Yeah. So,
No, I'm talking about the existing duplex.
oh. So, on the sidewalk, what they're,
No, that-
along here?
Right there. What are the,
Okay.
there? What are the openings on that wall?
There is one opening right here. I think there's a little, maybe dining room table in front of that window in the kitchen, or a little breakfast table, but that is a window.
And the laundry area that you're proposing is new, right?
That's existing. Yep. And that's that little pop out there.
Yeah.
It's 30 square feet.
So the reason I'm asking these questions, I actually like the entry on that back side, along the back side. It seems private in a way that entering it from the other way does not. And it seems like, given the chance for landscaping there, that entry could be an interesting way of getting back to this unit, which is quite private for many reasons, and that's sort of kind of a private access to it. So I would, my comments are that I think that entrance to the proposed unit is actually beneficial.
Well, if I could, oh, I can't. All right. Shoot.
Anything else, Mr. Olson?
I do think that the laundry area, if that stayed, if that continued to be the entrance to the back unit, I think then what your proposal should include some upgrading of the laundry area and that whole area back there. Those are all my comments.
Okay, great. I agree with you, Mr. Olson. I think that having a separate entrance from the driveway is ideal. The fact that it's already existing is, why not use it for that purpose? I think with the addition of a small fence to separate that pathway potentially from the Unit A front patio, I think you would, have privacy for that patio. The walkway, as Mr. Olson pointed out, there's no real privacy issues. There's one window, and it keeps people out of the driveway, which I think is ideal. I think the proposal is a great use of space in the rear of this property, and I don't think there's really any adverse impacts to the neighborhood or the neighbor. So I think it's a good.
I agree with you. I didn't say that, but I do think it's a really creative approach to this, the issue here of adding this unit on the back. I think it's quite creative.
Yeah, and I think Vice Chair Six was kind of speaking what I had in my mind. There's some means of visually supporting, quote unquote, supporting that cantilever to kind of take it away from just being a stucco projection, just something there to make believe that it's being supported by something else other than the structure beneath. Okay, so is this comments only, or do we need a motion?
We'll need a motion, but it doesn't need to go anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no appealable decision that would be happening,
Okay.
so just
So we do
continue
need-
indefinitely.
We do need a motion.
Chair Moore, I'd make a motion for indefinite continues with the following comments, that the applicant should work out a convenient location for the trash, that the applicant shall have a more definite configuration of the paving materials versus the existing asphalt driveway, that the applicant shall find architectural features to visually support the 6-foot overhang above the garage faces, garage door faces. and finally, if the private entry to the back unit is as located, that there should be some more study of the laundry area and the in-between building pathways to that unit. I think that's it.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
We discussed perhaps, I think the applicants agreed to at least look into extending the landscape strip along the back of the I'll call it a motor court area, but. Yes. And then there was some discussion about upgrading maybe the laundry room area, just to make it. Mentioned that. You did, okay, thank you.
I would suggest adding that at the next review, the applicant shall provide additional photos from the proposed ADU patio to satisfy any privacy concerns.
Let it be included.
Great, thank you.
I didn't understand what you were asking for.
Additional photos from that ADU patio, just to verify there aren't any privacy conflicts.
Good.
Anything else?
Second approved.
Great. Well, let's take a vote.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'll take the roll call vote. Chair Moore?
Have we had it read yet?
Okay, let's read it back.
I can read it back. Okay, continue definitely with the following comments. The applicant shall work out convenient location for the trash enclosure. The applicant shall have more definite configuration of the paving materials versus the existing asphalt driveway. They shall find architectural features to visually support the 6-foot overhang over the garage door faces. If the private entry to the back unit is as located, that there shall be more study of the laundry area and the in-between pathways to that unit. The applicant shall study expanding the landscape strip on the north elevation. And at the next review, the applicant shall provide additional photos from the proposed ADU patio to satisfy privacy concerns.
Okay. To the maker of the motion, can we add that the board is pleased and happy with the proposal, location is acceptable, et cetera?
And the architecture is appropriate. That would be the first motion, the first item on the motion.
Okay. The proposed architecture, mass, location of project is acceptable?
Is acceptable, yes.
Okay. Is that okay?
The proposed architecture, mass, and location is acceptable. And would you like me to continue? And then the applicant shall work out a convenient location for the trash enclosure. That's it? Okay, thank you.
Are we satisfied? Okay. All right, now we can vote.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'll take the roll call vote. Chair Moore?
Yes.
Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson? Yes. Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Olson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys.
All right. Yeah. Moving on to item number 3. I'll read this while you're getting set up. This is a new item for concept review, Highway 101 HOV improvements.
So I only have the PowerPoint?
This is a proposal to construct 1.5 miles of high occupancy vehicle lanes in addition to highway improvements in the highway main line and ramps to improve vehicle recovery and sight distance. The project limits extend from Olive Mill Road to approximately half-mile north of Cabrillo Boulevard northbound on-ramp and is referred to as Segment 4E. This is the last segment of an 11-mile HOV lane project from Carpinteria to Santa Barbara. The highway improvements also include reconfiguration of the Cabrillo Boulevard interchange to the standard right-hand side, on and off ramps, 2 new bridges over Cabrillo Boulevard, the replacement of existing roadway pavement, installation of sound walls and retaining walls, and upgrades to drainage, signage, lighting, and barriers. All improvements are proposed within the existing public right-of-way. No appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Okay, welcome. If you could introduce yourselves, is there any planner intro or anything? We're just, here she is.
Thank you for your patience as I ran down. My name is Megan Arciniga. I'm the project planner assigned to the highway project that you're going to be looking at today. I have a couple things I wanted to highlight before your board before you begin to kind of frame your review. And a few of you are already familiar, but the biggest, most important is to know that there are design guidelines specific to highway projects. And these came as a result of knowing that our community would have improvements to the highway and knowing the dance that we do with Caltrans, SBCAG, all the agencies involved, and knowing that highway improvements primarily address Caltrans requirements for safety, travel, all those things, right? Just a sec. So the idea of the guidelines is to first recognize what our community has as unique, the historic elements. So we have a Montecito Parkway that was first designed in the 20s, was recognized in the 40s and updated again in the 50s. But a lot of the character has remained the same. So the guidelines acknowledge the historic elements, the parkway elements, and then they also acknowledge the improvements that design, sorry, thank you. That highway projects have that's unique that it's not buildings, it's not fences, right? We're dealing with sound walls, lighting, barriers, landscaping, stuff that's not as fun, I don't know, or more fun, I have no idea, to your review, more fun. But so one of the things that the guidelines first outlines is that Caltrans is, or any body that's coming through with highway improvements, needs to do a preliminary step of meeting with the city first with the smaller design group. And the point of that is that we don't want the design review process to start after they've gotten to a point where they're saying, well, Caltrans standard says we can't do this. You know, once it's locked into a certain point for geometrics and safety requirements and all that, then it really feels like a moot point to do design reviews. So the request and the guidelines is for any applicant team to first meet in a very preliminary stage. What does it look like? What are we dealing with? We're still limited, right, by safety requirements and all that, but giving some effort and setting expectations as to what our community expects to see of our highway design really reflect our community's character. So I do want to draw your attention to those guidelines. It's really fun reading. It actually is. It's kind of cool to know our history and the importance we put on it. So the applicant team is familiar with that. They've been working within those guidelines. It's their job to prove to our community that they're trying to meet those standards. It's your job as a design review board to say, yes, I think that's appropriate. I think this could be done further. Et cetera. So that's kind of the back and forth we have. They've done that process. We met for a year about in that preliminary step with members of your board. Also, this project is the last leg of the HOV lane, as you all know, driving through up to town. So the benefit of that is that we get the benefit of lessons learned and also the knowledge of what our communities to the south have done. And we can actually look to real life examples as to material choices, materials you don't like, preferences. So I do encourage you, or anyone in the community actually, to pay attention as we're talking about those things. If there are specific things you do or do not like, we have a lot of examples of the HOV improvements, newer ones just to the south of us. The other thing that happened to know is that the project does go to the Planning Commission. in addition to the design guidelines, what happened in the 90s, the city council also created a new section in our coastal land use plan specific to specific highway policies. So we didn't want just design review, but also planning commission and city council has standards that they're looking at specific to highway projects. So we're really trying to tie the bow, really be clear and set the expectations of what we want to see in our community. So that'll be my job and the planning commission's job to review the policies. You don't have to worry about that. So as I pointed out, I do encourage you, we'll give you a digital copy of that. I think that hits everything. It is a fairly small segment, like I said, or as was described compared to the neighboring, the southern segments. But we still get to make it our own, make sure it meets our requirements. Let me see if I missed anything. I just wanted to make sure I kind of summarize what you would look at. I think that's about it. You know, the guidelines talk about scale and pedestrian scale, lighting, materials and all that, and preferences. So the project's still in initial stages. It's incomplete. It requires a coastal development permit from approval from the Planning Commission. And they've submitted that formal application. This is the first public review of the design. They still have items for zoning and Planning Commission application to complete, but they will be resubmitting that soon. But we welcome your comments and review, because as they go back to refine that resubmittal, we want to make sure your comments are incorporated in that resubmittal. And that concludes my intro. If you have any questions, let me know. I may not stay the whole time of this meeting. So if you have any questions up front, please let me know.
Okay. Does the board have any questions at this point?
No questions.
Okay. Okay, if you could introduce yourselves.
I'll start. Hi, my name is Dave Emerson. I'm with Caltrans. I'm the project manager for the 4E segment in Santa Barbara.
Good evening. My name is Zach Sevilla. I'm the design lead. I'm working with Mark Thomas, and we are contracted with SBCAG to coordinate with Caltrans on this segment.
And I am Christine Anderson, also with Mark Thomas. I am the landscape architect for the project.
Okay, well, welcome. Okay, so we're trying to limit the presentation to 15 minutes, but so do the best you can.
Perfect.
And take it away.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I want to start off by saying it's good to be in front of the board this evening. I do want to thank Richard and David for their time that was spent in the initial phases of the project that Megan mentioned. It really did help shape the project that we're going to talk about today. So just to start off to orient everyone, again, the segment 4E is entirely within the city limits. On the southern or most eastern end of the project, it starts at the Olive Mill Road overpass, and then you can see it progresses to the west as we go northbound along the main line. All of the improvements are actually fully within the Caltrans right-of-way. That was one of the conditions of the project, so we're not acquiring any property with this project. So we're adding a lane and then reconstructing the project within the existing Caltrans right-of-way. One of the most significant pieces to this project is at the Cabrillo interchange. So it was mentioned in the description that this project does reconstruct the interchange entirely. So currently there are left-hand exits, and with the addition of the HOV lanes, that is not possible to include anymore. So the project was approved with reconstructing that interchange to go to right-hand exits. With that, it does provide opportunities, as we'll get into, for planting and other enhancements at the interchange itself. So we're going to start with the Cabrillo Boulevard interchange, since that is one of the most significant pieces of the project, and I'm going to pass it over to Christine, because one of the things we wanted to highlight first again is the planting opportunities that exist with the proposed improvements.
Thanks, Zach. And just as a high-level portion of this, we did choose plant material for drought tolerance and maintenance considerations throughout the project, throughout the corridor area. But in particular, this gives us a good opportunity, especially in the Cabrillo interchange where we have larger planter spaces, to allow for what is part of the design guidelines, which is the mixed Montecito Parkway that was selected by the design guidelines as well as the DRT to move forward. So that would include the cypress, oak, sycamore, and palm tree that's also consistent with the other segments to the south of this area. So the Cabrillo interchange having more capacity for that actually allows for this greater plant material with drift supplanting, understory plant material as part of that. Can you go to the next slide? So you can see here that we have some selected trees from the skyline planting. The design guidelines talk about skyline planting being able to highlight those areas where we have interchanges and exits along the freeway areas. And so these are the 4 plant materials that characterize that mixed Montecito Parkway. And then where we have more maintenance considerations and more pedestrian spaces, more fussy detail, if you will, we do have this enhancement planting palette that we would be using, for instance, at the Cabrillo interchange itself, where there will be more maintenance provided for that and more scale opportunities. And then in a lot of areas along the southbound on and off ramps, we have these narrow planter areas that kind of present a little bit more of a challenge for the design, the landscape design, where we have these narrow roadside planting areas, as well as some areas that are along the southbound and northbound shoulders along the rest of the highway. And in those areas, we see using these types of plants, especially vine placement, where we have retaining walls and fences and things like that.
So what I wanted to do to help explain the project, we developed a series of renderings. Each one of these dots shows the locations that we're going to look at through the next several images. One of the things I just wanted to highlight before we move on is that at the northbound ramp, you see that there is a proposed roundabout. So that has been selected because of the current Hot Springs roundabout, which is directly adjacent. So we have had initial discussions with city staff about the design of the roundabout. There are still some modifications that we're working on as we just finalize the design moving forward. So we're going to start off looking at the southbound on-ramp. So imagine we are sitting at the new southbound on-ramp looking to the south. The freeway is on our left, and the existing Union Pacific Railroad is on the right. The Cabrillo Underpass project, which is a separate project, is just off the right side of the image here. As we go forward, Christine and I are going to tag team this because there's civil improvements that go hand in hand with the landscape. We tried to look at this comprehensively. So just from an overall design standpoint, as was mentioned, there are standards that we do have to work within, and that limits where we can put planting and the types of planting. But for this interchange, if we look south, the proposed improvements meet all Caltrans requirements. And then you see that there is a retaining wall on the right-hand side. That's because we're getting close to the Union Pacific right-of-way. And in order to build these improvements, we need to construct the wall there. One of the considerations that we were asked to look at is to mimic the existing wall, which is shown in the picture down on the lower left corner there. That's currently at the Cabrillo Boulevard and State Street area. So that's where we drew design inspiration from. And then in terms of planting, Christine, if you wanted to touch on just the types of plant material.
Right, so this would again be those narrow roadside planter area plant palette considerations, and as you get closer to these pedestrian areas, you would have some enhanced planting, but the rest of the on-ramp there would be in that narrow roadside planter palette.
So what we're going to do now is just turn around 180 degrees. Now we're looking at the new southbound off-ramp. So again, Union Pacific Railroad is on the left-hand side of the image here. You can see that same wall texture and treatment is applied there. And then where we have the retaining wall adjacent to the freeway, because it is a fairly constrained area, we also have a retaining wall on that side. And again, we've used the same wall treatment there. Plant material and everything else is similar in this location, again, just based on the types of areas that we have here. So for this image, we're moved underneath the bridges and we are looking in the southbound direction. So the northbound structure is the one on the left, the southbound structure is on the right. One of the challenges with this type of layout is plant materials just do not grow underneath structures, and it typically becomes a maintenance issue going forward. So one of the treatments that we reviewed and selected was this cobble that would be applied to that surface underneath the bridge. It's called slope paving. And so that was chosen through the design review team. One of the other features that was highlighted here is that these are two separate structures, and that's to allow light to pass through so that's not completely dark underneath the freeway there. And I'll get to lighting in a minute, but there's also pedestrian scale lighting underneath this as well. So for this image, we're now on the other side. We're on the northbound side. Hot Springs Roundabout is directly behind us. We're looking at the new northbound on-ramps. So you can see, again, we have retaining walls just based on the type of site constraints that we have. That same treatment is carried over here as well. And then there's also more area on this side for additional planting enhancements. So Christine, talk about that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of discussion among the DRT members about the planting in this area to make sure that we learned our lessons well from the Hot Springs Roundabout. And to use more of the considerations of some of the work that's being done at the Los Pautos roundabout, up to and including the UPRR overpass. So using more of the grouted cobble in the median spaces, especially where it's very narrow, using more of the sandstone boulders to make it a consistent kind of plant palette, if you will, of materials. And then also in those narrow areas where we had space available for vine plantings and some smaller plantings, using that enhanced planting palette again.
So we're going to move up and we're going to focus this next image on the bridge that's shown in the background there because it is a completely new structure. So we spent quite a bit of time looking at different styles for the bridges, everything from the columns to the arch layout to the barriers along the top, the color. So there were multiple things that we looked at. Ultimately, this was the design that was selected at that time. The inspiration really does come from the existing structure. If you look at the existing bridge that's out there today, it's a very shallow bridge that does have arches through the different spans. And then the barrier that's across the top of the bridge, that's consistent along the corridor. It's there to minimize that visual impact that you would see with a solid barrier. So it does open things up. And then color-wise, it's consistent with the barriers throughout the southern 11 miles of this corridor. So the last image that we're going to look at here, this is now the new northbound off-ramp. So the freeway is on the left side, and then the Hot Springs Roundabout is shielded by the trees on the right side there. One of the things I wanted to highlight here is there was a lot of discussion about that retaining wall that's shown there on the left. And we did work with the team to identify planting along that wall to shield that. So you see that there's a barrier there. The narrow plant materials are consistent with what Christine mentioned earlier. And then that allows vines to grow up and shield that wall so it's not just a vertical concrete face. So I do want to quickly move on, talk about lighting for the project. So there are existing lights along the roadway now. We would be using the same type of light with this project, with these improvements. There are two different scales. There's the street light, which is more for vehicles, and then there's the pedestrian scale light. Now they're very similar. They're designed to go in combination with each other. So we did look at a lighting design. I wanted to let everyone know that the lighting meets the minimum lighting requirements for both pedestrians and vehicles, but we also wanted to look at a rendering just so the board would have a opportunity to see what that would look like at night. So again, this is that same view looking towards the northbound off-ramp. You see the combination of the higher street lights plus the pedestrian lighting. And then as we go underneath the bridge, now we're looking back towards that roundabout, the northbound off-ramp roundabout. And you see we've continued those same pedestrian lights underneath the bridge as well. And again, that's just to provide sufficient lighting during the evening hours. So we're going to move now to the opposite side of this corridor. So we're going to look at the Olive Mill interchange. And there's two views that we're going to look at for this perspective. One is going to be looking from the Olive Mill overcrossing in the northbound direction, and then the other one is going to be from the freeway looking back towards the Olive Mill overcrossing. So this is that view looking from the existing Olive Mill overcrossing looking north. There are a few things to highlight here. One, that all of the widening occurs into the median of the freeway. So you see a new concrete barrier along the median of the freeway. That's where the HOV lanes have been added. Along the outside of the freeway, on the right side, there's a new retaining wall that's being constructed, and that's needed for safety, stopping sight distance around that corner, which is Caltrans standard. But it also does provide an opportunity for planting and for other landscape enhancements along that side of the freeway as well. And then on the left side, coming back, that's the existing Olive Mill or Spring Road off-ramp. And again, it provides an opportunity for planting along the left side of the image there. I want to highlight that that area in particular, we spent a lot of time looking at, because as we go to this next image, one of the discussion points was about shielding that existing concrete abutment that's there. As you drive southbound, you notice that the existing Olive Mill overcrossing is there. There's not a lot of landscaping, so it's a pretty tall concrete face. And so one of the things that we tried to do was put more planting in that area. And that metal beam guardrail that's shown on the right side there, it serves two purposes. One is it's there for traffic safety to shield that abutment from vehicles if they do happen to leave the road. But the other thing is it does allow us to plant closer to the freeway, so we get more landscaping in that corner than we otherwise would have. And then just a picture of what that metal beam guardrail looks like is shown in the bottom right hand. It is stained, so that's not the typical just galvanized steel railing that you would see elsewhere along freeways. Do want to touch on sound walls. So for this segment, there are currently 2 sound walls that have been explored. Both of them are along the Spring Road or southbound Olive Mill off-ramp. So you see them shown in the images there with the pink coloring. And working with the design review team, this was the aesthetic treatment that was selected at that time. So they are concrete CMU walls. And so there would be a series of pilasters that would be installed at intervals along the wall. And then in between there, there would be the split face CMU walls that are more or less a tan color. And that pattern would be repeated along the wall itself. One last item to highlight are the median barriers for the project. Again, this is, most of the work is being widened into the median of the existing freeway where there's currently metal beam guardrail there now. Safety standards require that to be a concrete barrier. So all of the areas that are shown with orange have a new concrete barrier that's going to be required with the project. So you see primarily along the median, some along the outsides of the freeway. There's existing concrete barrier along the outside of the freeway that we're maintaining for a period of time. And that was done because there are existing large trees in those areas and we wanted to avoid any impacts to those trees. So anything where you see where we're maintaining the barrier, that's to protect trees that are directly adjacent to the project. You see as we continue north, again, we do have that concrete barrier throughout the remainder of the project, both inside and outside, and that's there for traffic safety. This is the current barrier that's proposed. This is selected as more of a unifying element along the corridor. If you've driven through any of the southern segments that have been constructed, this is the barrier that's under construction now. And so with discussions early on in the project, the goal was to carry that barrier as a unifying element along the corridor so that you don't have differences along the way. So it's 42 inches tall, and then it does have this mock block texture roughly about a foot down from the top of the barrier. And with that, I hope I was under 15 minutes. We can go back to any slides if you have any questions or comments.
Great. Let's open public comment.
Thank you, Chair Moore. If anyone joining via Zoom would like to speak on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. Not seeing any raised hands. I don't have any speaker slips and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Moore,
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah,
Let's hand it off to the two folks that were involved most
yeah, I'm
intimately with this.
very mouthy, so
Yeah.
I wanted to say.
First of all, you guys look great in real life. Beautiful team, beautiful and handsome. So, that being said, I just wanted to remind.
Sorry. Well.
Start over.
I'm not going to start over. I think, it was a really super team, and I felt they're extremely responsive to everybody's input, and it was a delight, and I think the product reflects that. A couple things. First of all, that, that quirky left-handed charm small-scale Cabrillo interchange is not going to be there. It's just not possible with the right-of-way, with the HOV lanes and so forth. But it was carefully studied, the location and the rationale, the way the layout was done, and I think it's we're going to miss that old funkiness, but I think what's being replaced is the best good-looking solution. There was a lot of discussion about consistency along the corridor. If you notice that through Carpinteria, all the bridges are tan, and the sound walls have kind of a stacked block in and out type of sound wall. And the team did not, well, I guess the local team, arm of the team, pushed for things that were more appropriate for Santa Barbara. And so we get a sound wall that's more simple, as again, like the wall along the Mission Creek. We get gray structures for the bridges. We worked hard in making this part of the corridor more reflective of Santa Barbara than the more, dare say, contemporary look of, or the different look anyway, of the Carpinteria extent. And there was a lot of discussions again about the foreground plant, maximizing the foreground planting in front of the retaining walls and doing grading to minimize the height of them. So I'm very happy with what's happened, and I have a few questions, but I'll save those till later.
Okay, thank you. I don't know how the remaining board members feel that weren't on the team, but I mean, honestly, with the presentation, these are my feelings. With the presentation that was made, feeling it looks very complete and thought out and very thoroughly designed, I would defer to the two members on the team to ask questions and clarify anything that's in your mind, rather than everybody asking a bunch of questions, unless you have some burning, deep question that must be answered. How do the other folks feel? Do we all need to get into this, or?
No, I actually really agree with that, and I feel like the presentation addressed the fact that Santa Barbara's freeway is different because of the landscape, and so it seems like you guys have looked for every opportunity to include that, and I felt like that was addressed in the presentation really well. So.
Mr. Olson, do you have, what is your feeling? Do you want to?
Well, I do have some questions.
Okay, well, please, then ask away.
So I wonder, is there a site plan that shows both of the roundabouts and how they intersect? Because I'm a little confused how that works.
Yeah, this would be the best image that we have in the presentation that shows the location of the two roundabouts. So this is the new roundabout that I highlighted at the northbound off-ramp, and the existing Hot Springs Coast Village Road roundabout is directly adjacent to it. I think it's roughly around 400 feet that separates the two.
Thank you.
And to the south of the freeway will be the Los Patos roundabout as well, which not exactly shown there. But I was hoping perhaps we could, if I can interject, maybe we could just go back and you've sort of presented this in sections, you know, and I was just hoping we could just kind of go and look at each section if anybody has a particular question or comment, and then we can just kind of move on to the next one per se. I mean, I even have some questions just because it's been a little while since I've seen your work, but perhaps we could start there.
Okay.
You know, if that's okay with the.
And we can chime in
Yeah.
as we move through.
Exactly.
I have some general questions.
Okay, well, why don't we
before
start off with those? Okay.
Yeah. So graffiti is a problem. So what thoughts have you had about that, and how do you approach that problem?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. I think one of the primary drivers for making sure that we had planting in front of the walls was to minimize the blank face of the wall. So that's there to deter graffiti, and the goal was to provide as much planting in front of those walls as possible. And let me just go back to that page that shows the wall. And so if you look at any of these renderings that we had, there was a lot of focus about trying to put planting in front of the walls. Where there are open faces, typically the textured faces that you have, like that split face look that you would get with CMU walls, these are all concrete walls, but that also helps to deter the graffiti because it just doesn't adhere the same way as a flat surface would.
And the slope paving would, that would be the same for the slope paving underneath of the overpasses.
That's correct.
So I think in this time of water conservation that we're facing, and perhaps even greater water conservation in the near future, how does that fit with all the greenery that looks like make these presentations so palatable?
So, Mr. Olson, so I understand the concern, the question, but I mean, the aesthetics, this is what they've chosen. They're certainly have run through the process of vetting what's being planted and all that. So
If it's not watered, it's not going to be green.
I understand, but our purview is the aesthetics. What are they presenting? What does it look like? So
Well, to me, it seems like that's what it looks like, but I'm willing to stop there.
We do have a response that might help.
Well,
Well,
if I'm not mistaken, you are using reclaimed water in this area, yes?
That's an answer.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and it will
Right.
be, I'm sure, a low flow, low precipitation type irrigation system installed as well, which will help considerably.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and all that,
That's
all the
a-
sort of standard requirements.
Right. As I mentioned during my presentation, we did select plant material for drought tolerance, as well as this will all be irrigated with an automatic irrigation system using a smart controller, you know, that's equipped for evapotranspiration and those sorts of rates. We are going to be using reclaimed water to the maximum extent feasible. We do have one reclaimed water location already identified in the corridor, so we're hoping to extend that as much as we possibly can to this area.
Great. Those are my general questions.
okay, well then I guess can
Sorry, I have one more general question. We had a very timely general speaker today before the meeting started about art, and I remember discussions about, you know, where to incorporate and when to start introducing in the project art. Can you let us in on the update on art inclusion?
Yes. So Aaron, I know we're just starting to look at that, so I don't know if you want to provide a response.
If you could come up here to the microphone, either to the podium.
Here's a microphone.
Thank you. And someone else may want to elaborate. I'm Erin Silva. So we did, during the DRT process that we discussed earlier, kind of talk about when art would go in, where it might go. And so where we landed with the DRT process is that there are areas where public art could be installed following completion of the process. And we would expect that that would be, I believe that there's a city process for that, for selecting art, for selecting artists, and that would be a separate project, the art installation, but the project would accommodate certain, basically leave spaces for those opportunities.
Thank you. If I understand correctly, we decided that there would not be art super integrated into any of the structures. Therefore, that the art is kind of a separate entity placed in areas not totally integrated into the structures.
That's exactly right. I recall from the DRT process that it was a real desire of the people who had reviewed the project that it would be quite simple in design, streamlined, not fussy, and that there wouldn't be any art integrated into, say, the walls or the bridges themselves, the way that some other communities have chosen to do, but that there would be opportunities for public art that was carefully selected following construction of the project.
Okay, well, I guess, why don't we just take the segments running north to south and just zoom in on those and see what questions come out of those.
I'll go back just to the overall site plan then, maybe as a starting point, and then we can zoom in on any questions that would come up. So starting off on the south side, that was the Olive Mill overcrossing that we were looking at. And what I'll do is I'll just go to that rendering looking northbound from the Olive Mill overcrossing as a starting point.
Any questions? Okay, let's move on.
So we're going to work our way back to the north. So just real quick before we leave, this is again looking southbound now at that Olive Mill overcrossing. Were there any questions about what was presented?
Nope. Okay.
No, I think, I remember in our discussions, I think it was important, at least in my mind, to have enough landscape material so you really soften the visual impact of that big concrete bridge abutment, if you will. And so it looks like the bridge is sort of emerging from the landscape. I think that was important, and your rendering sort of shows that, which I think is important. So I think as you get into the final design, I think that's important to remember, certainly.
Mm-hmm. And just a question that brings up is the intention to plant trees that are this scale immediately, or are they going to start smaller?
Yeah, this is a 15-year rendering, so it wouldn't actually look this size right off the bat, but these are intended to be mostly mitigation trees, so I believe we have 15-gallon trees that would be planted primarily at this location.
Okay.
And we are showing sycamores right there, so that's mainly what you're seeing.
Okay. And move on.
So we'll go back to the Olive Mill interchange. What I'll do is just start at the overall view first, and then we can zoom in on any of the renderings that anyone would have questions on. So again, this is looking down, and we can zero in on any of those renderings that I highlighted during the presentation.
Cabrillo interchange.
What did I
You
say?
said all of it.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
okay. Just making sure.
Yeah.
For the record.
Team effort.
That's right.
Okay, why don't we just scroll through them and see if anything comes up when we.
Yeah, so this first one, this is the southbound on-ramp, the new southbound on-ramp.
If I could add, there were some conversations about the slope paving earlier on, and also consistency with the corridor. So if you were to take a look at this slope paving, we just installed this in the Sheffield undercrossing just down the road. So you can get an idea of how that looks in real life if you want to head out to the field and take a look at it.
Is the grade on either side of the on-ramp, is that also sloping up to the retaining walls, or is it flat or flush with the roadway?
So it slopes down initially and then it goes back up.
Okay.
One comment I might have, if I might, you have that illustration of the Mission Creek wall there, and one of the important elements that I'd point out, and you may want to reflect it in that, is the Mission Creek, the walls, they were done in a big sandstone block, and I know because I worked on some of that Mission Creek stuff, but we had a form liner that had the larger, would appear to be the larger blocks near the bottom, and then they got somewhat smaller as they moved to the top. I mean, that's sort of a classic approach to masonry on Mission. And I know, I'm pretty sure that we did, that the engineer did the same thing here. It's a form liner there with real stone cap. So just something to think about, because it looks a bit more authentic, and I don't think it takes anything special to make a specialized form liner to do that. So if I could just point that out. Thanks.
Okay, if we could move on.
So for this one, we just spun around 180 degrees, now looking back at the southbound off-ramp.
Okay. Let's move on.
So underneath the bridge, main things to highlight here are the slope paving, and like I mentioned, there was a lot of discussion about making sure that there was light that would pass underneath the bridges. Normally, Caltrans would require these to be connected, but we did work with the team to make sure there was an opening there.
So I have a question about the paving. Is that's real stone?
It is.
Okay. And it's a sandstone cobble, yes, which would be different. I can't remember, which would be different than the cobble that you're using on the aprons, maybe around the roundabout, or I know some of the medians you're using that same cobble, correct?
That's
Am I right
correct.
about that? Okay.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the tan sandstone.
Yeah, the Santa Barbara sandstone.
Santa Barbara sandstone,
Right.
yeah.
Is there opportunity to, I mean, unfortunately, this is probably the worst rendering of all of them. There's no opportunity to kind of let the landscape creep in a little bit from each side? It seems like it's sort of direct, as the bridge goes overhead, that's the cutoff point. There's no chance of it kind of creeping in a little bit more?
So I would defer to you. Typically, the challenge is that a lot of the times underneath the structures, they just do not grow, just because there's not enough light that passes over there. One of the goals that we had with planting up to that slope paving is that over time, the plant material itself would kind of soften that edge, and you wouldn't see just that one straight line. But I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we tried to do as much as we could, is to plant close to the edges so that the plant material would kind of like overflow the planter a little bit, to kind of soften that, for that exact reason. It's just an unfortunate truth in landscaping, is that the plants need light to live.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm talking like just a few feet. I'm not talking like halfway under the bridge. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my
it's
question.
maybe something that we could take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, you might get light penetrating in 10 feet maybe.
Yeah.
Something just, I mean, it is a little overwhelming, all that pavement under there, so.
There's a lot.
And I'm confirming that the median that you see here in the foreground is the same material as there is on the slopes?
It is. Unfortunately, with renderings,
I know.
it doesn't lay flat as well as it lays on a surface, so taking that image and trying to lay it flat just doesn't work as well.
I get it.
Okay, well, let's move on.
Excuse me, I might be guilty of, accepting something and then bringing something up. Is there, So I'll just say that I didn't see this rendering before. But is there any way to change the material instead of the cobble? Maybe, I don't know, some kind of block or very red stones or whatever, like in the gap between the bridges, just to break up continuous length.
Vary the size of the cobble would help.
That's what I was thinking too, rather than have it being so uniform.
Yeah.
You could go from this to this. I mean, maybe that's a little bit too much, but I mean, some variety, I think would be good.
In a significant size change to
Can I ask a clarifying
Yeah.
question? Is that intended to be, that type of change, is that intended to be across the whole face, or is that just right where the bridges separate?
Oh, it just where it separates from
Okay.
the top of the top of the slope down to the sidewalk.
Yeah, so this area, right?
Yeah, something there that, and change of cobbles.
Why not the
Well,
whole?
just trying to get away from this continuous, the rendering maybe just is a disservice, but it's just scary, the continuity, the mass, the length of that same material all the way across underneath.
I would encourage you to look at the Sheffield that was most recently constructed, because it is very difficult for this rendering to illustrate exactly what is shown. I believe the Sheffield under crossing right there looks actually very nice now that it's been constructed that way. So it would be good to take a look at that.
So
How is
see
it
how it could
different
be
than what we sort of see here? Is there any variety or what?
It
Off
has,
the look, but-
there's a small retaining wall at the base of it, for one thing, and it also, it has like a really nice, very even consistency overall. So it's just hard to make this look like it actually does with all the shading and shadows that you might see.
And it's about the same size, the Sheffield one's about the same size as this one.
Yeah, that's correct.
So if we're not convinced, how do we, this leads to process, though, how do we add our input after the meeting? So are we seeing you
let's-
again?
Well, yeah, so let's do
Okay.
this. As we go through these sections, let's just create our list of comments.
Great.
For each specific piece, and we'll read them off at the end.
I don't want to get too specific, but I had a question regarding the suggestion to switch block sizes. Are you seeing that as a cut edge where it switches from a smaller block to a larger block, or is it more of a natural feel? It sounds like it's more defined.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way, if you sort of go upstream on Mission Creek where they use real stone and not these storm liners, they're just bigger blocks. I think it's like 18 to 22 inches high by 3 feet, and then it gets, it doesn't go progressively smaller, but there's the appearance of larger blocks at the base.
But in terms of the slope paving, this natural
Oh,
color
this.
here.
Oh, I
where
see
the
what you're
two-
saying.
Yeah, the two materials meet. I'm assuming that would be a cut edge where the two different sizes of cobble meet. Otherwise, you'll have some sort of irregular.
I don't think so.
I don't think
Just-
cut
okay.
edges.
No,
Okay,
no.
so just a natural
Yeah,
ending of one. And
I would
beginning.
say.
Okay.
Okay, we can move on. Anyone have any questions, comments?
I had a question about the roundabout itself. Now, I'm trying to understand the detail. There's not going to be a low sandstone wall like there is at Hot Springs, correct? Which basically will match the Los Patos one as well, but this is going to be different. Is that right? Am I understanding it? It's just going to be an apron and planting?
There is currently proposed a wall around the inside, if I can zoom in here.
Oh, okay.
It's a very short
It's-
wall.
oh,
It's
like a
Yeah,
curb
and
there.
we're
very
getting
small.
pixelated there, but you can see generally that there would be like, say, roughly a 1 foot tall wall. And it would be similar where it has,
Hand it to the left. if you can
Oh,
see that.
I see it.
yeah, so you can see the apron that goes into the wall. And this would be stone veneer over the top of, like an actual CMU wall that would be the backing for that. But those would be stone veneers, very similar to what, was approved for the Olive Mill roundabout.
As I remember, Olive Mills is matching not Los Patos, Hot Springs.
Hot
Hot
Springs,
Springs,
that's correct.
Right. So it's got a sandstone veneer and sandstone cap,
That's right.
and then, but then a sort of almost a multicolored cobble, smooth cobble.
Right.
So am I seeing in this apron here, is that going to be the sandstone cobble that matches the median, or is it going to be like Hot Springs and Olive Mill?
It-
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, currently it's proposed that it would more or less match what is at Hot Springs. And again, that's a grouted cobble because that off-tracking area there has to be able to support large trucks that go over it.
Of course.
Yeah, so there's a concrete base and then those cobbles are grouted into
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
place.
But-
Well, like,
but
that's the way
you're-
Hot Springs was constructed.
Right, but you're correct that the Hot Springs truck apron is a different color than that sandstone, that Santa Barbara sandstone. That's
Yeah.
a Mission River flat or something along those lines, Mission River cobble. So
Yeah.
the intent was that this roundabout, that truck apron there would match the Hot Springs roundabout with that Mission River
Right,
cobble.
but would provide a contrast to the cobble in the median.
That's correct.
That's nice, okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
So on the roundabout, I wonder about the wisdom of the large tree in the middle of that roundabout obscuring traffic and to see those people coming around. So you've obviously thought about that, but
So we just had that question come up at a public meeting.
So if anybody that wants to chime in, if you could move to the podium and turn on that microphone, that'd be great.
And please just address your name for the record, too. Thank you.
So we just had that comment come up at a public meeting, and the city transportation staff answered the question as well. In the middle of the roundabouts, we want to have a raised area because it helps people see an object in the distance. I'm sorry. It helps people see an object in the distance, which helps you slow down, which actually is a safer traffic control mechanism to have tall plantings in the median. We like trees in Santa Barbara, but even if you didn't have plantings, you would need to have a mound to have that visual stopping area. So it's a safety measure.
thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't remember where we left off, but there was a lot of discussion on increasing the planting area and/or the height of the left-hand wall here on this image. Those were incorporated in, no, right hand, excuse me, yeah, excuse me, my other right. Were those incorporated, or is this what we last saw, or is it different?
We did make some changes. There currently are the geometry of this roundabout, it's very particular in that one thing kind of affects all of the other parts of the roundabout. So when I mentioned that we're still coordinating with the city, we're working out the geometric layout of the roundabout, which will then potentially allow for more planting, which is our goal. But right now, if it's similar to what is shown here, we did maximize to the extent that we could the planting in front of this wall on the right-hand side.
So if any changes occur, it'll be more planting than less?
That's the goal.
Okay, thanks.
And I want to add to that as well, that we heard from the design review team that the planting at the base of the wall on the roundabout side was actually more important than the planting above that. So if we had to push the wall to get more planting at the base of this wall, that was actually the preferred route.
Quick question, so what species of tree are you anticipating for the roundabout there?
Sycamore.
Okay.
Okay. move on. Any questions?
I will say again, just unfortunately, the renderings do not do a good job of overlaying a texture on a flat surface. So we talked a lot about cobble before. I just want to preface that discussion with just the limitations that we have with renderings.
And in this location too, I'll reiterate that right now it looks as if the truck apron cobble is the same as the rest of the cobble, but the intention was for that to be the same as the Hot Springs roundabout.
So this is your one picture of the bridge, right? Is there another one? It shows more detail?
It's shown in all of the various renderings. This one, I think, is the best elevation view of the bridge because you kind of see from one abutment to the other, and you see the arches between the structure, between each one of the spans. And then looking underneath the bridge, one of the design treatments, I'll zoom in just a little bit, was that in between the columns themselves, there's also arches connecting in between the columns themselves.
It's nice.
It's also where we see the railing, too. We could get a better view of that railing.
Correct.
Above.
What is that railing? What is the material?
So it's all concrete. So this is what's referred to as the Caltrans Type 85 railing. So all railings have to be crash tested and approved. And this is the open railing that's approved. So it's got basically a form liner that creates a timber beam across the top. And then there's a concrete curb with those like little pilasters in between each one of those rails.
And then they're painted or stained?
It's
They are
stained,
stained.
yeah.
They occur other places in Montecito, yes? Or along the freeway?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I
most
thought.
recently at the Sheffield
Right.
interchange as well. Although in this case, because we're using the what looks to be plain concrete going up, the intent was to continue that plain concrete up into those posts, if you will, the posts that look like it's holding up the metal, the wood beam.
Very similar to Milpas Street.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
So Vice Chair Six, your comment about adding a larger scale cobble or boulder or stone, do you see that just happening in that sort of gap between the spaces, or is that something that could potentially show up as like a base along the sidewalk? Or
I don't know whether, I just jumped at that as a easy demarcation, but if there's other ways to interrupt that plane.
And Mr. Olson's question was, well, why not everywhere? And I don't know, why not?
Have it be broken up more often.
Yeah, I don't know if I would favor just having it at where the break in the bridge is necessarily. I think maybe we're just looking for a little bit more variety.
Yeah.
So you just don't have this, what appears to be sort of a flat, albeit textured surface, maybe just more texture, perhaps.
Okay.
If I can ask a question about that too, one of the things that the design review team had talked about was to add boulders in the landscaping, much like you see in this rendering. And I think we were intentionally imperfect, I guess is the best way to describe it. Is that something that maybe would be appropriate?
Yeah, I think so. If you could be imperfect in that zone as
Yeah.
well, I think that would help a lot.
Sure.
Okay.
Any questions here? I notice we don't have boulders in some of these locations. You've kind of focused them on the roundabouts and those areas.
Right, the intent for the boulder locations was to bring those down to the more pedestrian scale areas.
Great. Okay, moving on.
I think that was the last rendering, and then the other portions were lighting, sound walls, and concrete barriers.
Any questions about lighting?
Impressive illustrations of how the light looks at night.
Yeah, that was great.
It's helpful, yeah.
I have one comment about landscape, just in terms of species. And maybe this is just me, but I always sort of imagine Montecito north of the freeway, on the north side of the freeway, is not the place you have palm trees, especially mixed in with native material, which you're using a lot of. So, and I noticed just that one spot, you've got some palms in there, not that many, I know, but there's something about that just doesn't seem right to me. I mean, to me, palm trees are everything on the south side, along the waterfront necessarily,
Right.
you know, but. Towards the beach. Toward the beach, yeah, exactly. I mean, there are palms. Well, you drive up into Montecito, you just don't see many Washingtonias as a landscape feature, let's say.
Yeah.
So maybe you could just look at that, I
Yeah.
guess.
We
You don't-
can. we
You don't
can-
use that many, I realize.
No,
So that makes me wonder why I even have them, so.
Yeah. I think primarily it's to get that, high,
Skyline.
skyline look from a distance, so that you can see the exit coming up. It was something that we've talked about through all segments of the corridor is, some palm tree placement. We do have some palms that have to be mitigated in this area too, for some removals that are being mitigated for. But we can take a look at relocating, to the south side of the freeway if that's something.
No, I'm talking about on the north side of the freeway,
North side of the freeway.
where you've got the northbound on-ramp. I think
Gotcha.
you've got right at the roundabout,
Yeah.
you've got a few in there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Chairman-
Because I don't think they really go with cypress or oaks or, I mean, maybe if you want more skyline, just go with more sycamores. Or, even the cypress eventually is going to get up there too, so.
Okay.
Just a thought on my part, but.
I'm still not clear on the sloping cobblestone under the bridge. Were we recommending interrupting that with large boulders in a natural way, or maybe migrating it down closer to the bottom? Is that was a discussion about boulders, yes?
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
okay, good.
Yeah, I think where the discussion ended was to mimic how they have sort of them scattered here and there, somewhat naturally,
Mm-hmm.
sort of like,
But to implant them,
Rocky Neck Park style, where there's some
Yeah.
clustered here and there,
yeah,
would
I
be
think that's a good idea.
interesting to break up that just
Yeah.
field of
And a cobble and a great big boulder. I like that.
I have a question about a slide that we didn't see as we went by, and that was the 42-inch median barriers.
Oh, yeah.
So this, to me, seems to be an integration of art with the tile into this concrete. And it doesn't seem to me to be Santa Barbara style. And so.
I would agree. I just thought,
It's sort of Nebraska style.
I think the only reason I sort of went along with it is because you said it had already been approved, south of here, and I just thought, but it doesn't say Santa Barbara as Mr. Olson says, to me anyway. I'm not sure how to solve that problem necessarily, but.
Mr. Olson, is it a color problem, or is it a?
Oh, I think it's the straight line tile.
Question. The 3D rendering above looks like it's, it looks like it's, what do you call it? No,
Well, it's
So-
repeating the pattern, so it's part of the rendering.
Yeah, it's really not tile. It's actually a form liner in concrete to kind of mimic a split face block that's very similar to some of the some of the in-out block sound wall that you see along the Carpinteria segments that have already been installed.
Yeah, same observation, either way.
Right.
I do want to, just from a traffic safety standpoint, we're not allowed to do any texture below this elevation, which is why we drew a line there, that there has to be a minimum elevation that has a flat surface. And that's in case a car veers off the road. Any type of texture tends to snag vehicles. And so there would be a minimum distance where, or height that we wouldn't be allowed to do any type of texture below that.
No, I get that.
Would it be simpler and better, in your opinion, Mr. Olson, to just do like a colored cap on top of the wall and not have this detail?
Or not have the striations in the concrete where they're now shown that I was calling tile. So both versions of that, a concrete colored cap sounds good, and the elimination of these striations in the concrete.
Yeah, if we look at this rendering, you'll notice that where we're adjacent to planting, we eliminated that block texture for a few reasons. One is we're allowed to have a lower barrier height, so the barrier height here is only 36 inches instead of 42 inches, so it's lower. And then the preference at the time was to just have the plain concrete barrier adjacent to other walls or the landscaping.
But it is colored.
It is colored.
Right.
Yeah, it's just not, there's no texture on it.
Mr. Olson, if I may, maybe the objection, and I feel the same, maybe it's the stacked bond of the pattern. If that was a more random ashlar pattern, or even, something more varied, or even alternating bond or something like that. Or maybe ashlar. You know what ashlar is? Varied patterns and so forth. And maybe that would solve your concern, which I resonate with, but also adding some kind of consistency with our southern neighbors. Subtle, but maybe that would alleviate that concern we have.
But what can you do to make it seem more Santa Barbara to me? What sort of element that, I don't know, short of an ornamental tile of some sort, But this all has to be sort of integrated as part of the form liner, right? That's budget-wise and all, you have to go this route.
That's correct. We're not allowed to use any type of veneer in the barriers themselves, because if a vehicle hits it, it can't be dislodged from the barrier. So everything that we do has to be some type of integral concrete. And then I did want to just, again, bring you back to that. Overall, this is a fairly short segment. So as we look at, if I go back to just this image here, as we look at this segment starting from the Olive Mill overcrossing, we have a couple thousand feet before we get up to the bridge barrier at Cabrillo, which again would change barrier types and go to that type 85, which is that wood post. And then north of here again, it's about 1,500 feet, and then you tie into existing concrete barriers north of the segment. So just as we look at consistency, I just wanted to highlight that.
So anything you see is going to go by pretty quick.
Yes.
Which is a good thing because, in my mind, because whatever you pick, you don't have to do thousands of feet of it.
Well, you hope it's not Friday at 5 o'clock.
No, that's true. That's true. You'll see it all.
You might be looking at it.
So we do try to direct your eye to be outside the freeway where we have the landscaping.
Okay, well, it sounds like more study required there.
Is that possible, more study? Or are we married to this?
Go ahead, Fred.
this kind of takes me back to all the conversations we had at the design review team, because this was one of the areas that we were really challenged by, you know, as far as the minimal area that we were focusing, wanting to be consistent with stuff that was already in the corridor. I think as Zach pointed out, we have basically a couple options in the corridor, the plain concrete that has been used on the exterior where there's planters, and then in other areas of the corridor, I don't think we don't have it in all areas of the corridor, the in and out pattern, but so there is some discretion here. But I think what I heard is what we heard during the DRT is that how do we make this more Santa Barbara? And we ultimately ended up with consistency with the segment to the south. Even though to the north, where we're tying in, as Zach pointed out, we don't have this pattern. So we can look at that more, maybe bring, you know, some limits in how it will connect in different areas just to provide that continuity. I think that's important. Those are good comments.
Would you be able to state your name for the record as well, too?
Fred Luna with the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments.
Ms. Anderson?
Just one thought is maybe we look at it in segments like you were just talking about, and the median barrier from Olive Mill until Cabrillo is one, and then the next portion ties into the north part, and then it's not 3,000 feet or whatever, and then it makes that portion a little bit more special, I guess, if you want to say.
Is there a way you could make that material look more sandstone-like, perhaps? I don't know if this would work or not, but make it look like the walls textures, but like, rather than having stacked, you know, 6 by 6 or whatever that dimension is, go with almost like a block, and with a, I don't know how much texture you're allowed to do, but you know what I'm saying? To make it look like sandstone.
So the bottom 2 feet has to be relatively
No,
smooth,
I'm
so
talking
it
about
would be
just-
that northern
I'm talking about
piece.
just the band.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly possible. I mean, we're doing a similar form liner texture for the retaining walls. So I think bringing that to this I think that's certainly possible.
And
Because there's something, I mean, for me, that wants to not be like the people down south, you know, I want something different. But if you're able to come up with a material that suggests south but is unique to here, and maybe what I suggested might work, I don't know, you can look at that, but.
I think we can definitely look at it. I did also want to just quickly highlight that if you drive along the corridor now going north from Cabrillo, you see that there's just metal beam guardrail in the median, and that's there because during peak storm events, water could actually technically flow across the freeway. So there would be a break in the concrete barrier. It'd be concrete barrier, then it would be metal beam guardrail again before we get up to the existing concrete barriers north. So just, there would be, say, 1,000 feet where there wouldn't be any concrete barrier, so that could help also be a transition.
I guess going forward, I might suggest that you come back with a couple of options that we can take a look at, and that's, okay.
I like what David is saying, because there is a precise shape that a cut sandstone takes with its, you know, angled edges and so forth, and a kind of a peak in the center. So it's very distinctive.
David, can I just ask one clarifying question? Would you want that smooth concrete band across the top, or would you want something that just bleeds off to the top? So instead of having the smooth concrete band, you could have that texture that starts here that just goes to the top of the barrier.
Fancy.
I'd like to see it
Okay.
shown, just to see what it looks like.
Extend across the top that way.
Yeah.
You
It's
might,
different.
yeah, and you might also have a version with a cap on it.
Sure.
just That's a little bit more of a Santa Barbara style. Yeah. But, okay, can we, what else?
Could I make a comment on the closing here? Is that I just think the considerations for Santa Barbara style are impressive, and say your team is fabulous, and I can see that you have lots of help, and I think it's really, I for one appreciate it a lot.
It's going to be nice.
Can we just briefly touch base on the sound wall? That's okay. Because this is the one spot where we don't have landscape, right, in front of it?
There's one location where there's no landscaping. You have a very keen eye there. So unfortunately, in this area right here, we do not have landscaping in front of the wall, and it's because the sound wall sits on top of the barrier, and we can't have landscaping on the barrier. So it would look something like this, just pretend that there's pavement right up to the face of that barrier.
And
But-
there's no opportunity for landscape from behind, right, to come over? Because that's the other property.
There is partially, there is some space there for landscape. There's a lot of existing trees in that location, and so we're trying to protect existing trees. There's also, in some cases, there's a retaining wall at the base of that, so we did look at the possibility of planting vines on the backside of that wall and providing vine pot, holes, cores in the wall to allow vines to grow on the other side of the wall. I think that's still a possibility. There are some areas though where the retaining wall is of such a height that it may be several years before you start seeing any vines creeping through any sort of.
But will this be similar to your other retaining walls at the other off-ramps, the style that you were showing?
So the retaining walls on the back side,
Sorry, the
sound wall?
No, retaining walls at the ramps that you have in the renderings. Will this wall at all be similar in style to those, like mimicking the
Currently-
sandstone?
Yeah, currently we weren't proposing the sandstone texture on the back side of the wall here because it's adjacent to the railroad right away. There's nothing that
Oh, yeah, I
precludes
guess I
that.
meant on the freeway side.
Yeah, so you wouldn't see it because the freeway's higher than the railroad.
Got
So
it,
it would
okay.
just be not seen.
I see.
I have a quick question about the sound wall, if you go back to that picture. Yeah, so, those are pilasters, yes? And,
Correct.
and what is that, what's that material? Is it the same material, or is it concrete, smooth concrete with this texture in between?
I think we had actually selected, through the design review team, a different colored block style. So it would be another CMU block, but just a different color, like a contrasting color.
And is there a cap? I can't see.
I don't think that we had selected a cap at all. It was just going to be a plain, very simple concrete, split-face
Because
concrete
there's sound
block.
walls in town now, just, I always think of it south of Milpas, I guess. And as I remember, there's pilasters, there's smooth, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it has vines and stuff growing all over it now, but is it somewhat like that, but with this material? I mean, as far as the,
So as I understand that area, that's where that's right near the tennis courts, correct?
yeah,
And I believe that that's actually a plastered finish
it
on
is.
there.
It is.
I can speak a little to that. This wall is slightly different in application just because this is right up against traffic, whereas that wall is set back behind guardrail. So the pilasters actually have some relief, but we won't have any relief with the pilasters.
so
It'll
it's
just be a
gotta be
change in color.
flush.
There could be a cap on top still, like the wall you're describing has. That's not a problem.
And then with a cap on the top of the pilaster, just to sort of define it, if it's all, okay.
And that cap could be, I'm assuming in this case it would be a block to match the wall. I mean, a CMU block as opposed to a stone block, which we have.
But
down
it would contrast to with this material. Okay, I think that works.
I'm sorry, but I don't remember in our work team having contrasting pilasters. It seems that that's not authentic and would just have the same color.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Yeah, I don't think it should be darker or anything. It should be sort of the same, but just,
It changing texture essentially, but not changing color.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
I think it's built out of the same material, or should it have the same texture? How far out, is it, it's not in plane, right? It comes out a little bit? Or it is
It would be.
Oh.
It isn't plain, it has to be. Yeah.
So, oh,
Or texture.
why have them at all?
Just to break it up, I guess.
So how do you break it up? With different color?
Well, something complementary, but not too contrasting, I think. I mean, does that make sense?
Maybe it's
Just a subtle
smooth?
variation.
Maybe it's smooth, different texture?
Oh, maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah,
Can do that, huh?
With the cap.
With a cap.
with a continuous, yeah. Is it,
But we're not talking only, not only a cap on the wall, but also on this pilaster, like a square,
yeah.
2 by 2 or whatever, sitting on top.
I think that we should study the smooth with the cap.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Well, we bounced around a little bit, but I think we touched every topic.
Everywhere. Great, thank you. So why don't do we need to kind of create a list as a motion, or how does that?
Yes, yeah. So it can be a short compiled list of the comments that were made.
Okay. So I'll make a motion for continuance back to the full board with following comments: that the board appreciates the time, energy, and design that the applicant has presented, and especially appreciates all of the work that's gone in to this with all of the design team, including those present, to have this be just a really great first step. We have the following comments. Number one, since we're on the sound wall, number one, study the pilaster design, suggestion made to create the pilaster or the appearance of a pilaster by using a smooth material that projects upward from the wall top and includes a cap.
On the wall, too? Yeah, I think so.
And study providing a cap on the entire wall as well. What did we think of the color? Same color?
Yeah.
Study using the same color for the pilaster as the wall. Okay, what else did we have? Vice Chair
So,
Six.
yes, at the sloped cobblestone plains at the underpasses, to study significant contrasting boulders in random patterns, primarily at the lower slope of those planes, to provide contrast and interest. And number 3 would be to study a differing pattern in the inset of the interior, what do you call them? Interior barriers, medians, the medians, as different from the stacked tile look to a sandstone, something that reflects the shape and texture of cut sandstone. Provide alternate designs, one with just a horizontal inset as shown, and one to provide the sandstone look to the very top and around up to the top and over the median. What else?
42-inch barrier wall.
That's what I was talking about, yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Board Member Black had some comments about variations in sandstone sizes as well.
Oh, on the walls, the form liner sandstone walls along the off-ramp, on-ramps. Just a progression of sizes, starting with.
So could we just say study sizes of, I don't know, make that into a.
Do you have an example that you could easily refer to?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Right next to your building.
Yeah. Variations as the retaining wall at the Mission Creek at Cabrillo. And there was a suggestion to eliminate or use very sparingly palm trees on the northern,
Basically on the north side of the freeway.
north side of the
We
freeway.
only used them one place, as I remember, yes. So,
So should we say eliminate or?
I would.
Or just, yeah, okay. Oh, and also confirming that the roundabouts, the flat apron and the wall will match the existing roundabout at Hot Springs. And then when input has been finalized to show hopefully the increase of planting along the retaining wall north of the Cabrillo roundabout. Anything else?
Anything else?
Let's read that back.
All right, so continue indefinitely with the following comments. The board appreciates the time, energy, and design that the applicant has presented, especially appreciates all the work that has gone into the project with the design team to have a great first step.
May I? And make it special to Santa Barbara.
Okay. The applicant shall study the pilaster design, suggesting to create an appearance of pilaster that creates a smooth material and includes a cap. Study providing a cap on the entire wall, and study the same color of the pilaster as the wall.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Sand walls, yes, I'm sorry, on the sand walls, yes. On the slope, cobblestone, study significant contrasting boulders and patterns on the slope of the plains to provide contrast and interest.
At the bottom of the slope.
At the bottom of the
I
slope.
think it's going to look really strange.
Well, when you say at the bottom, I don't know, are we on the same page then?
I didn't mean like just at the bottom, but just,
Okay.
I think
They
they
got
can
it.
use their
We don't have to
artistic
write. We don't have.
abilities to-
We don't have to write it into the.
Exactly.
Exactly. You get it.
Keyword was study.
Next, study differing pattern and inset of the interior barrier medians as different from the stacked pile look to something that resembles sandstone. Provide alternate designs with horizontal inset as shown. Provide sandstone look at the very top and over the median.
And an alternate to provide sandstone to the top and over. You want to reread that? Reread it again.
I'm not sure what that means.
Can you reread that one?
What I had was studying differing pattern and the inset of the interior barrier medians as different from the stacked pile look to something that resembles sandstone. Provide alternative designs with horizontal inset as shown, and provide sandstone look at the very top and over the median.
And
Well, it's not a
as
median, it's a
shown,
barrier.
after as shown, provide another alternate look with sandstone up to the top and over.
Yeah, no cap, I guess.
I think we want to see both.
Okay, yeah.
We want to see the sandstone, what it looks like if it was coming over the top. We want to see the sandstone dying into a cap.
Is that how it's read? Well, okay, it's good.
So instead of median,
Medians.
say safety barrier?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Study the variations of the retaining walls as the retaining wall at Mission and Creek and Cabrillo. Is that correct? Similar to?
To the, your sandstones.
Yeah.
Similar to the retaining wall. Study the variations of the retaining wall similar to the retaining wall at the Mission and Creek and Cabrillo.
No, a study making variations in the form liner representing sandstone
Sandstone block.
block similar to the retaining wall at the Mission and Cabrillo intersection.
Okay. Eliminate the palm trees on the north side of the freeway. On the roundabout, the flat aprons and the wall will match the existing roundabout at Hot Springs. And when input has been finalized, show an increase of planting on the retaining wall north of the Cabrillo ramp. I heard ramp. Is it roundabout? Okay.
Roundabout, yeah. Do we need to add anything about assuring that the art program?
It's really a separate issue.
Okay, never mind.
Anything else?
Second.
Okay. Then let's take our vote.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'll take the roll call vote. Chair Moore?
Yes.
Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
And Board Member Olson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. Okay, and with that,
I came into, for a whole year, we were coming into your house.
Excuse me, folks. We got to just
Okay,
wrap up the meeting.
1 second. Yeah.
Excuse me all.
Okay, we can now adjourn our meeting officially for November 28th. Thank you.